If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowances for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor look too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can hear the truth you've spoken twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life for broken, and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at the beginning, and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are done, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 40 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. And which is more, you'll be a man, my son.
time, you'll realize that there's so much more to the book than the page you were stuck on. Finally, you will feel free to live a life you love living instead of the life you think other people want you to live. Remember, you are the highest authority when it comes to knowing what you want and what you love. So stop trading yourself for the approval from others. Ladies and gentlemen, weirdos and geeks, please repeat after me. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a I don't give a fuck. 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 It's time to start doing the right thing. So trust your instinct, stop listening to others, and own your decisions. People will always tell you what to do, being and how to live. So let's create space for what matters most to you. You'll be glad you did. Now start reclaiming your time and your mental well-being by saying no more. No more. Say it loudly and proudly. In other words, fuck you. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck.
Target acquired.
Eagle 1, first strike. You have permission to engage the target.
Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Joining me today is Mr. Glenn Lawrence. He's already up here. He's ready to go, I think. He might be asleep. We don't know.
I'm not asleep. I'm wide awake.
Well, I figured it's that time of day where you normally sleep. So
I got
it's a good time for
some things to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing some things. I'm driving. I'm like getting ready to head out of town.
Yeah?
So,
where are you going? It's a top secret?
Far away. So my phone don't work. That's
yeah,
the goal.
your phone is jacking you up right now.
Well, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I don't either. So yeah, man. Let me start this intro off, guys. Today we're going to talk about mostly the debate tonight that I'm going to be doing with the Reverie. I'll go over the debate prompt here in just a few moments, and we're going to do. We got to talk about Trudeau stepping down. Trump gets legitimized today, and it's just going to be it's going to be a busy day today. Tino Prime wants to know if you're leaving town because of Michelle. Is she running you out of town, bro?
What? I'm not even leaving town.
I'm just repeating the question, my friend.
No. The show can never run me out of town. I'm not even in the same city.
I know. That's what
Why
I
can't
was
you run me
thinking.
out-
I thought maybe they knew something I didn't.
No, I'm not in Chicago yet.
Okay. All right.
You know?
Yeah, it's a Prime K's topic. Prime K's is always his topics are not really good debate topics, even good panel debate topics. Somebody should take him aside and say something. But I think he does it because he wants to. He needs to give the leftist a fighting chance. What I think. Because
No, we don't give them no quarter.
they get
No
routed every single time we go up there. The leftists haven't made a beachhead since I've been there. They can barely. I mean, honestly, they're.
No surrender.
Prime says he's assuming that since you're leaving town because she put you on Tinder, you're assuming he wasn't already on Tinder. You're making an assumption, not an evidence.
Man, you know what? I pride myself that I have never been on an app a day like those apps a day in my life.
I've never been on an app, but I was on a dating website back.
Guys, you need to hide behind the phone or something. I just go up and talk to somebody. I want to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
You know, like how the real pimps do.
That's a good way to do it.
I mean, Greg, did you like Tinder your wife? No.
No, I did. We did meet on a dating website though, but it's I guess it's different that you're not swiping left or right.
Christian Mingle?
No. I forget which one it was. It probably doesn't exist anymore. So,
man,
Prime is just wishing. Wow, Silvar coming in hot. He's saying Chino Prime is just hoping you'll join him over on Grindr. You spelled
ooh,
Grindr.
that's isn't that the gay one?
I think it is the gay one, but it's not. I don't know though because I think the gay guys spell it differently. Don't they spell it like with a Y or some other?
I don't want to be on anything that sounds gay. Okay,
Yeah.
let's just stay away from all the gays.
I was not on eHarmony, but I probably should have been. That was pretty funny though.
Why? You should have been on the one that you were on because that's the one you found your wife on.
When I was there, that's right. Whichever one I was on, I was on. I was on the.
That
right
was the
one.
you were on the right one.
That was the right. That was the right combination. So, Glenn, how's life been, man? I hadn't seen you online nearly as much lately. I know we talked on the phone a little bit, but how's life been overall?
It's a 4-letter word, like a lot of other 4-letter words, but you know, that's life.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Like, you know, there's good days, there's bad days, there's ugly days, there's beautiful days.
Hey, you're not heading to Chicago, are you?
Why would I be heading to Chicago right now?
Or Chicago area? Because they've
why?
got a lot of snow, bro. Like a
Oh
lot.
no. Absolutely not.
Like my buddy from Missouri yesterday, which is
I'm going near. Let's just say this: I'm going closer to the desert. I'll be going closer to the.
Oh,
desert.
you're doing movie shit. You're doing movie shit. You're out there on some Screentown kind of deal. That's what you're gonna be doing.
It's something like we go. Let's just roll with that. Let's just roll with that.
Yeah.
We'll just stick with that.
Glenn's getting back into the porno game, guys. He's the guy with the mask. That's him. Can't reveal his face. Can't ruin his reputation. And no denial is forthcoming. I am joking though. At least I think I am. Glenn may have dropped off. He is driving and he is out in the middle of nowhere, which is like once you leave LA is exactly where the middle of nowhere is. All right. Yeah, it's been interesting, Mr. I've been watching some of the reports, and my buddy from Missouri yesterday posted a picture that was just it was an amazing amount of snow, like a wall of snow. Pretty interesting. Hey, what's up, John Mosman? Good to see you. So, did you get snow, John? You got a lot of snow out there? You're in the middle of nowhere, Colorado. Silvar Ogre, I believe Glenn is the stunt man for the porno industry. That's what I think he is. I'm kidding, guys. I'm kidding. Golly. Mosman, would you like to come up and we're doing some debate prep today for the Reverie, and we're going to talk about. Oh, Glenn's back, and we're going to talk. So we're going to do some debate prep.
Sorry
for the
about
Reverie.
that.
That's all right, man. We know you're driving. We'll do some debate prep for this thing with the Reverie, and we're doing a. We're going to talk about the Canadian situation with Trudeau. Why I have theories about why he stepped down. I'd love to hear some more. I don't know if we have. I don't know if we have any Canadians in the chat today, but we'll see if we can't find one. Silvar Ogre's asking is if you were the stuntman or the fluffer in the porno industry, Glenn.
I'm the lead dick, so
Lead
know.
dick.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
I mean,
Well,
even though I don't work in the porn industry, but like if I was going to, that's what I would be, I guess.
Yeah, you'd be the lead dick. All right. So I'm going to give you this debate prompt, Glenn. Let's. This is an interesting one in that I don't even see an argument here. It's designed, I think, for the leftists to be able to say that that anytime we commingle, or actually that all drugs should be free and under tighter regulation. But here's the debate prompt. The consulting firm McKinsey reached a lenient deal with the Biden Justice Department for its role in the. I'm assuming by the way, his grammar terrible. In the opioid crisis the United States is facing. McKinsey was accused of turbocharging the sales of Purdue Pharma's OxyContin by getting the company to target pharmacists that were irresponsibly prescribing the medication. So, first of all, that's a fallacy because if they were irresponsibly prescribing it already, they're already doing a good job for you. And second, how would you target those people anyway? But we'll drive on. This happened despite McKinsey being well aware of the risk the drug posed. Independent from this, an illicit drug legalization movement has been growing in the United States. However, if successful, would that birth? See, here's the real argument. Would that birth many more Purdue Pharma's and McKinsey's organizations that seek to push dangerous drugs for profit, regardless of the consequences? Often these discussions focus on relieving the prosecutorial threat from consumers, but should we instead focus on the rapacious producers who would look at vulnerable Americans as a profit center? Literally every single fucking business looks at you as a profit center. I hate to break it to all of you guys, but literally every single business. All right. Even if we should have the freedom to take whatever drugs we want, should we also have freedom to sell whatever drugs people will buy? All right, Glenn, where you at on that?
I think it's a stupid prompt. I think that
Very poorly written.
What? Yeah, it's like, so what do you want me to argue? Like, should they crack down on the doctors who might be over prescribing drugs? Well, I think that's a smart thing to do,
Sure. Yeah. Might even make malpractice insurance go down.
Yeah. Like that would be a smart thing to do. But, I mean, how are they tracking this? Are they tracking it per script? These doctors, right?
I'm not really sure. So my understanding is that the true issue, and I think he avoids it here. The true issue with OxyContin is that it was originally it was initially marketed to physicians as non or low addictive. It had a very low addiction factor, right? And so,
how would they know if they didn't like, give it to the people first?
well, I'm assuming they did testing, right?
What, on rats?
So yeah, I mean, or they probably did human trials of some kind, but again, but they really literally go. It's an interesting deal. Hang on, somebody, you guys are typing too fast. Slow down. There's only one of me, and there's like a lot of you. Let me go ahead and recognize everybody in the chat today. Damien was first today. 13 was a close second. He may have actually been lurking and just hadn't typed anything yet. We've got Glare 1%er in the house. Of course, we have Mr. Boulay and Chino Prime in the house. Mr. Boulay is the top mod. Don't mess with him. WMD, the faithful robot lackey, is in the house. As always, to take the riffraff out. Don't post links. He hates that. Imperius is in the house, or he was. He may have run off to hide underneath a girl. Silvar Ogre is in the house. Mr. Mister is in the house. Mr. Mister, I'm sure, has some things to say on this, and I can't wait to hear his input. Chino Prime, obviously, is in the house. He's been having a go at Glenn this morning. Silvar Ogre, I've already mentioned. And Effing Epic has made it. All right. We've got John Mosman, of course. I called him out earlier.
So
love John Mosman.
basically, this whole thing is about regulating, or is it like we're trying to sue OxyContin?
But it doesn't say what it's about. It's literally
so
like,
what
it's
the
like,
fuck? This is the dumbest prompt in the world.
It is the dumbest prompt. The best I can break it down is should we legalize drugs or shouldn't we legalize drugs? And if we do, if we legalize the taking of all drugs, if we decriminalize the taking of drugs, should we then still restrict the selling or marketing of drugs so that you can only buy whatever you can buy, right? So that's an interesting thing. What say Lou?
Just like the war on drugs has been dumb. We've never won the war on drugs because we facilitate. We facilitate and we sell the damn drugs ourselves. So how about just decriminalize all drugs, and when people do dumb shit while they're on drugs, they don't get to say like I was on drugs. That's why.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
don't care.
We don't stick them in rehab, right? We don't stick them in rehab.
Yeah, there's no such rehab. If they want to be rehabilitated, they pay for that shit themselves.
All right, I got a super chat coming in. Stand by.
Silver Ogre donated $10 super chat. This should help you prepare without being distracted by the need to grift.
I did forget to grift. I always forget to grift. I need somebody to remind me to grift. $10 comes in from Silver Ogre. This should help you prepare without being distracted by the need to grift. You're right. I did. It does distract me, and I absolutely did not remember to do that. Sorry, guys. It's my bad. What say Lou? They've already come down on the doctors. They did a few years ago. That's it's interesting. Lindsay Smith, did I see that Flo is banning you until you're nice and respectful to him? You know what? I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. What say Lou is apparently a female, by the way. I did not know that. And R. Allen is in the house. I see you out there. I see you guys. Big Pharma runs a lot of the lobbying without getting rid of the ability to lobby government officials. Nothing will get done about it. They pushed oxys like it's no one's business. That's right. See, the original and look, maybe my, because I don't pay a lot of attention to drug abuse because, to be honest, I hate taking medicine of any kind, really. But we can all only take you in. Oh, I got you. Hold on. Is that aimed at me? We can all only take you in doses. I'm assuming small doses, especially when you talk about how disgusting vagina is. LMAO. I think that's aimed at Imperious. I think that's aimed at Imperious. Yeah. Well, Flow, Flow State can ban you, Imperious. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Yeah. Well, you guys got the chat rolling today. So it is a weird prompt. It's almost like you know what this is? This is a leftist trying to write a libertarian prompt. That's what this is. So this is really interesting to me. So the first thing that we have to deal with is the entire reason McKinsey was able to do that. The entire reason that McKinsey was able to turbocharge, as he says, the sales of Purdue Pharma's OxyContin was that it was initially represented to the medical industry, to doctors, as harmless, no big deal, non-addictive. It's the best alternative to heroin and or morphine or whatever that you could get, right? And it wasn't. It's absolutely addictive. It absolutely it was horrible. It had horrible results. But pharmacists, in good faith, by the way, were handing those things out like candy, right? And so,
like Skittles,
exactly like Skittles, big bags of them. Just come get them. Yum yum, get you some. And doctors were prescribing them, thinking that they were doing the right thing. And then, of course, as they started noticing it, everybody tried to hide it. And that's where, they did come down on the doctors. They did do a bunch of, they did try and fix the problem later, but that doesn't really help you, right? So I understand that, yeah, okay, they came down on them and all of that, but but a libertarian, let's make the libertarian argument first. So a libertarian would say that if it's harmful if it causes harm, that violates the non-aggression principle. So they would probably argue that it needs to be regulated, but maybe not regulated. I need a libertarian viewpoint on this. Help me out. So I'm not very libertarian. So
wouldn't the libertarian viewpoint be like, just like, do what you do, mind your business?
No, because they have a weird viewpoint on drugs. Like, the conservative viewpoint is, I don't care what you do as long as you can do it without affecting me. Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Do what you do, mind your business.
No, but that's a conservative, not libertarian. Libertarian, it's they factor in all these aggression principles. What is aggression? And it's very, libertarian viewpoint would be that the government doesn't have any right to regulate what you do, but there should be, but they'll have some insurance company or some crap, some authority. They always appeal to an authority that is very nebulous. But it's very interesting. So, as a conservative, my viewpoint is it's none of your damn business. Yeah, it's harm of the individual versus harm on freedom. Right. That's right. Mosman's got it. The the conservative viewpoint is less regulation. We don't. I personally don't believe drugs should be regulated at all. It's just, that's stupid. It causes more harm than good. We spend a shit ton of money on it, and we have a lot of agencies that try and regulate it very poorly, and which is not conservative, and it's not in the Constitution. So who gives a fuck? And up until the 1940s, nobody gave a shit anyway. You could walk into a drugstore and buy all the morphine you wanted. We didn't have a bunch of.
I know. I want to go to a drugstore and buy all the trenbolone and Test and Winstrol. But now I got to go to Mexico to do all that.
All right. So as a conservative, but also I believe that there should be there are consequences to doing things, so you can do all drugs you want, but the minute you steal a car, break a window, try and beat someone's head in, something like that, then now you're in my backyard. You understand what I mean? And I believe that the only
streaking? What about streaking? I didn't break a window.
If you really want
to
be embarrassed and show everybody, your small package, then go right ahead. But
I wouldn't be embarrassed to be dragging on the ground when I'm running.
Well, I mean, if you want to risk damage to the unit, be my guest.
I'm saying, if I was under the influence and I did it, are they going to throw the book at me?
Did you hurt anybody?
No. Made a few people happy along the way.
Why do I care? It's literally like, so there's just as a sidebar really quick. There was a case in, I believe, Boulder, Colorado, where a guy and his wife gardened naked, closer to nature or some bullshit like that. I don't know. And of course, eventually the neighborhood grew up around them, and then someone actually saw them. I think you'd have to actually try and look, like you're looking over their fence or some shit.
Well, and then they were peeking.
Yeah, well, right. That's a whole other crime. And they literally called the city on these people gardening naked. Why do I give a fuck if you're gardening naked, man? I don't care, right? I'm I have a problem with a lot of things now, and Silver Ogre is kind of on where I'm at, is that if you sell a substance as safe, but that it's harmful, then you actually are committing fraud. I don't know if you're committing aggression by fraud, but you're committing fraud, and fraud is a crime, right? So that's one thing, right? Fraud is a crime, and we can prosecute you for that. I don't have to prosecute you for for selling drugs. I prosecute you for fraud. I prosecute you for lying. I prosecute you for negligence. And then if we take it, so what about the addicts? People get addicted. Then my personal viewpoint is that yes, I believe that society has a duty, if you will, to try and take care of each other. But there's a limit, Now, I personally believe that you can do whatever you want to do, but if you get addicted to drugs and you can't, and you have to go to rehab, if you can't pay for it yourself, the state pays for it one time. Once. That's it. And if you fail and relapse again and you get arrested, then you go to jail for doing drugs. Right? Or whatever you actually got arrested for, whether it's crashing a car.
Wait a minute. You saying the taxpayers got to pay for their rehab one time?
Yeah, and I'm on the fence about that. I don't think, but there is some social responsibility to at least try to help. I mean,
can we build them? Can we put them in there, and can we build them?
Because I would think so. I would think that you would build that you would float them alone, right?
Okay, I could deal with that. I could loan, sure, and they have to pay it back, and they're on probation until it's paid off.
Yeah, send John Bozeman the link so he can come up and talk to me. Because Glenn's driving. He's likely to get out in the middle of the desert and drop off. But hopefully not. Hopefully he's on like 80 or 40 or somewhere like that that has good internet more or less the whole way. So
I have Wi-Fi. My Jeep has Wi-Fi. I am Wi-Fi.
you are Wi-Fi. Yeah. So no, I'm a constitutional conservative. I means that I believe that if it's not in the Constitution, we shouldn't do it. Because that's the only document that the country actually agreed on. So not in the RV. Oh, I got the RV. Yeah. The rolling porn studio. That's gonna be a laughing joke now. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to put some more thought into this. I really need to talk to people who have because my opinion on drug and alcohol abuse is very biased, right? Like I don't care if you drink. I don't care if you I don't care. No, a classic liberal wants to tell you what to do, John Mosman. I don't want to tell anybody what to do. Conservatives is not in my backyard, basically. NIMBY. I'm a NIMBY, not in my backyard. I really don't give a shit what you do on your side of your fence. You know. Now, obviously, if you're cooking meth and it's ruining my flowers and making my kids sick, well, that's a problem. You know. Now it's in my backyard. I agree. Taxation is theft. I actually have a really good. I really want to have a good argument about taxation, and that is, and I need to write this down so I can remember to do it one day. But why is it? This is a good debate to have with somebody that is on the left. Why is it appropriate that I, as a human, need to contribute 40% of my earnings to society? Why? How is that appropriate? Not in my backyard, NIMBY. Anyway, I agree with that. I didn't say ordered by the state. I said paid for by the state once. If you can't pay for it yourself. Best thing is, pay for it yourself. So,
I mean, great. That does sound like, welfare-ish. Like, I don't like having to give.
I agree. I'm trying to strike that balance between, because my original thing is, if you, that's the meaning I use, Silver Ogre. I'm not a Karen. So so how do I put this? It's tough. So I would rather not pay for any.
Are you starting to get blue highlights in your hair?
No, I would rather not pay for a single. Pardon me. I would rather not pay for a single social program. I don't even believe that. I don't believe that there should be a national tax. I don't believe that there's a. I don't believe that. See, that my problem is with the federal government system. As far as the state goes, if me and my community vote to have a road, great, we pay for it. But I don't really want to. I don't understand why I'm paying for roads to nowhere in fucking California. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm getting way off of the debate prompt, but I just don't. I don't get it anymore. I don't understand.
No, I get what you're saying. I
don't understand why the federal government takes 40% of my earnings and my state government takes 0. Right? Like, how the fuck is this working? Why is this how is this even a thing?
Hey, Grid, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm trying to understand what they're saying in chat. Oh, never mind. That's an Imperious exchange, I think. Okay, yeah, it is. It is. All right. The goal of left is destruction of capitalism. All right wing, good or bad, is pro-capitalism. Capitalism inherently needs a law structure to enforce it. Yeah, to some degree that's right. Oh, we lost Glenn. Dang it. And that's not what I mean. That's never what I mean, Silver Ogre. But that's an interesting take on it. Not in my backyard. I've never heard that, but whatever. Anyway, let's see. Glare, almost nothing. As a matter of fact, we refused the federal education funding to this year because it came with too many strings. We try and take, my state operates at a surplus, sir.
Yeah, and I'm sure with the recent trans, there's probably going to be some issues there too. Yeah.
Well, that was the thing, is that to take the federal education money this past last year or the year before, whenever the funding came through, if we took that money, the strings that are attached to it is you had to have the whatever those stupid ass education programs that they want you to have in place.
Right.
And our governor, Bill Lee, said, no, we don't want the money. Keep it.
Yeah.
We don't want the strings that are attached to
you
it.
got a big governor.
Yeah.
You guys have a good state government.
Glenn Lawrence is Canadian. Hey, good day, Mr. Canadian. I hear that freedom has rung in Canada.
The liberal tears are flowing.
Oh yeah. Has the tyrant been removed?
Yeah.
He's on his way. Yeah.
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 He hasn't quite.
Texas gets federal funding mostly, I think, mostly for your immigration, to encourage the immigration into Texas, right? Like they're the one. A lot of the Fed money goes into your education system to in theory, educate illegals, ESL programs, that kind of thing. Yeah. So Jeep isn't known for good Wi-Fi. Well, he's here. He's back. So,
Vengeful Truther, why are you speaking this blasphemy? What the hell is this shit?
What blasphemy? No, I'm saying.
The name change.
No, you're mistaking.
You're gonna pay for that? You're gonna pay for.
I'm Glenn Lawrence is Canadian, not Glenn Lawrence is Canadian.
Yeah.
It's still writing. I can't read. Okay, I'm driving.
You can barely read normally, guys. Just remember what you're asking.
There's a distinction there, which is saying that he is a Canadian. That's Glenn Lawrence is, not that Glenn Lawrence is a Canadian.
Yeah, he's the token Canadian.
I own a Canadian. Big difference. That's fine. That's cool. Carry on.
Well, at least he's sworn allegiance to the Glenn Lawrence establishment. Lindsay Smith can come up. You can have Lindsay come up. Lindsay's good.
Yeah, like the other night I was Flow State's powder holder.
He used to sell powder, so he knows all about the drug trade. And we kind of got a little bit of field there, but I really do feel like this debate prompt is it's a leftist trying to write a prompt that will push people into a libertarian answer and condemn government, which, I mean, I do condemn most government, right? Like I really do. Like California as a state would not exist without the rest of the nation paying taxes. the amount of federal funding they receive is astronomical.
Right. But don't tell David Pac-Man that, because he believes that the blue states are holding the red states, and California is much better off than states like Texas and Florida.
They believe that when, they always go back to whether they're the fourth largest economy or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because you're in debt, fuckers.
Right.
Right? Like, if you weren't in debt, you would have a smaller economy, because because then you wouldn't be receiving an influx of money from the entire rest of the nation.
Well, and this is where I think it's important when you're making distinctions, like with like what you would call constitutional conservatism, which I would call classical liberalism, because that's what it is. But that
constitutional conservatism, by definition, cannot be classic liberalism.
Yes, it is. It is,
because liberals believe
it's no, because it's based on the classical liberal thoughts of people like the Locke Society. Thomas Jefferson was a classical liberal. This idea of men having the ability to govern themselves, that's a classical liberal thought. The idea that the government shouldn't be overreaching, that's a classical liberal thought. So, but the way that we have come to look at liberalism is that what has happened is that progressivism and Marxism have overtaken what the word liberalism would mean.
Yeah, sure, to some degree, but yeah. Even classic liberal believes that the state is responsible for its citizens. That at which conservatism does not believe. You're responsible for your
actually, I would argue that older forms of conservatism and social conservatism would actually articulate that, and that's why when you look at some of the people who like argue for like Christian nationalism, for example, they're articulating some of those conservative thoughts that come from England, right?
Let me address a couple things here really quick, and then we'll come back to that. Lindsay, WMD is a bot. He can't send you anything. Did we lose somebody? Oh, we lost Nick. Oh, it's too bad. Oh, there he is. He's back. There we go. All right, we lost Nick, but he's back. Yeah, I like all of what you guys are saying. Go ahead and drop the link in the chat. And then erase it. Mr. Boulay knows how to do that perfectly. So, if Mr. Boulay, if you can drop Lindsay the link, and then
okay, yeah. Every time I back out of this, it drops me. So,
whoops. Or you must be on your phone.
Yeah.
So, at any rate, I consider myself a constitutional conservative. It's not the Constitution. Right. It should not at a federal level. It should not exist. At state level,
and that's a difference though between what you would call a constitutional conservative and a libertarian. Is a libertarian would say no state at all. That it is kind of like the kind of extreme of what classical liberalism promotes, which is this idea of every individual has the ability and autonomy to make decisions. So there is. So if people think that you're a libertarian,
just 1 second, John.
Mr. Boulay and the Department of Numismatics donated $10 super chat. Woot woot. Congress certifies the vote. Make Grid 1 great again.
Make me great again. I think I had echo on that one for some reason. I don't know why I didn't change anything, but that's okay. Let's see. Yep. Make Grid 1 great again. That is true. Congress has certified the vote. Trump is now the president. He will be sworn in a few days, and life will be good. Life will be good.
That's if all the crap that's going on right now doesn't try to. I think there's some definite shenanigans happening trying to avoid that. But
were they doing any posturing today?
I don't know. I haven't heard. I've been busy all morning, so I
they were saying in the news that like they were probably going to be doing some posturing because of like, oh, we're not like Trump and going to stop the certification.
Well, I mean, first of all, they'd have to wake Biden up, and he can't get up before noon anyway. Just saying.
Yeah, he's slurring his words even harder now.
Yeah, I got to get into all of his shenanigans lately with it pardoning all of these people.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
and
like
giving, giving the
pardoning
award, giving the merit of whatever it is to the Clinton guy, to Clinton, and who's the other guy that it was like somebody that you just would say that.
Well, he get apparently I don't know, I can't say this for facts, so take it as a grain of salt, but I thought I read something where he was given like George Soros like the presidential freedom medal of freedom or something like that. Like, so,
Yeah. What did that guy do? There was something shady about that person that just got that medal.
Yeah, so I think John, Mister, kind of knocks it out of the park here. All right wing is pro capitalist and therefore pro law as the enforcement tool. Constitutional conservative by definition cannot be any part of the left. It is not
in American conservatism, I would agree, but not in original conservative thought.
Yeah, so I can only really deal in American, but so at any rate, I believe that all of this falls on the state. And I didn't actually mean to get into this conversation. I need to get back to the debate prompt so I can prep for tonight and come up with good arguments.
So you're debating this issue with somebody then, huh? Sounds like.
Yeah. This is on the Reverie. This is a leftist-run debate channel. Now he streams mostly to Twitch. I stopped streaming to Twitch because first of all, I felt like I was going to get banned, and I didn't want to do that. And second, Twitch, I just didn't have any followers there. It was terrible to try and get followers.
Well, Twitch is kind of like what is it? What was that social site that only feminists would go on? I'm trying to remember.
Blue Cry.
Yeah. Oh no. Well, there was the other one. It was like a blog type of space, but but basically, like, yeah, pretty much, with the exception of like based gamers, like most people on there are pretty left leaning. But they're presenting this issue. Are they taking the affirmative or the negative on this, or what?
So it's a panel debate.
Okay.
So it's just this is the topic. I'll read it again, just so we can all and now his writing, by the way, is terrible. But the consulting firm McKinsey reached a lenient deal with the Biden Justice Department for its role in I'm assuming he means the opioid crisis,
right,
in the United States is facing. McKinsey was accused of turbocharging, quotation marks, the sales of Purdue Pharma's OxyContin by getting the company to target pharmacists that were irresponsibly prescribing the medication. This happened despite McKinsey being well aware of the risk the drug posed. Independent from this, an illicit drug legalization movement has been growing in the United States. However, if successful, would that birth many more Purdue Pharmas and McKinsey's, organizations that seek to push dangerous drugs for profits, regardless of the consequences? Often these discussions focus on relieving the prosecutorial threat from consumers, but should we instead focus on the rapacious producers who would look at vulnerable Americans as a profit center? Even if we should have the freedom to take whatever drugs we want, should we also have the freedom to sell whatever drugs people will buy?
Well, that's a hell of a debate prompt.
Well, it's not really a debate prompt. It's some ridiculousness. But let me. Yeah. Lindsay, if you're still in the chat, Mr. Boulay can drop you the link in the main chat, and we can do it that way. So it is a hell of a debate prompt. And it's an interesting one in that, again, it's written it's like it's written by a leftist attempting to push a libertarian response, if that makes sense to you. So so let's start with let's start with the McKinsey firm. The McKinsey firm, they reached a settlement. They were always going to reach a settlement. It was not a criminal complaint. It was a statutorial complaint based that that they had basically falsely recruited or used false pretenses to encourage these pharmacists to push their drugs, and that's a that's a no-no in their world, right? So when the when Purdue Pharma, so when Oxy, and I go back to what I said at the beginning, it's my recollection it's my recollection that when OxyContin was introduced, it was marketed to doctors specifically as a non-addictive form of morphine, or an opioid, right? But it, in fact, was exceedingly addictive, right? And during the time that during the time that all of this was going on, doctors were under the doctors were 100% under the impression that when they prescribed these drugs, like if John came in and said, "Hey, I've got severe knee pain, and I can't even sleep. I've got got to give me something for the pain." As a doctor, Glenn would prescribe him OxyContin instead of a different opioid, right? And something that, because he felt like it was a lower risk, or he was led to believe it was a lower risk of addiction, and doctors generally are trying to avoid addiction,
which was the opposite of what was true.
It was the exact opposite was true, right? Like oxy's like super addictive. I don't, it was, but that's kind of where that fell out, right? That's kind of how that lined up.
Right.
And so it's a very interesting wording on this debate prompt. Like, for example, the wording, lenient deal. Well, what's a lenient deal? Do you think that McKinsey should have been disbanded? I think probably a leftist would say so. They're capitalists. They made money off the backs of these people.
Right.
They profited from pain and suffering while trying to relieve pain and suffering.
Well, I think liberals pick and choose what corporations they want to support and what corporations that peddle influence. And I know one of the things that liberals constantly like to gripe about McKinsey, and probably part of the reason why they're going to be so anti-McKinsey, is because McKinsey also has been huge in the advocation of fossil fuels, right? But like they were all supporting, as soon as Biden got in, big pharma with the Fauci ouchie, right? So in not understanding, it's kind of like, and that's why I always said, like, I wonder, historically liberals have always been against big pharma, but they pick and choose when they're doing that. So,
Sure. I think that's a solid point. I think that the left, my opponents on the left are going to say that, McKinsey didn't do any, the drugs aren't the problem. The problem is the company representing them was a problem. The fact that they were making tons of money off of these people is a problem. And capitalism bad. All of this is good.
Well,
And
it's like they'll talk about the influence that McKinsey used with all their resources.
I'm
But
sorry,
they're
who
going to
is
talk
Joy
about Bill
Taylor?
Gates' influence, right? Talk about Bill Gates' influence when it came to vaccines.
I'm not sure who just joined. Joy Taylor? Who's Joy Taylor? Is that Imperious? So with a funny name?
I was going to say that I think that's like an actress's name, Anna Joy Taylor.
Mm-hmm. It says Joy Taylor something, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know who it is. Throw something up in the main chat. Tell me who you are. I'm not bringing you up. Anyway, yeah, it's probably Imperious. At any rate, so the leftists are going to come at, my opponents on the left are going to come at this as corporations bad, took advantage of people, took advantage of well-meaning doctors by marketing this poison to them, and there's no, that it's a it's an issue because
I
of
think
that.
a good point for you to argue, Grid, would be, so it's not just the companies that peddled their influence that used their lobbying resources. It was a failure on everyone. It was a failure of doctors to do their due diligence. And we know that there are doctors who have in the past been paid to peddle scripts, right? But the other thing is also look at the failure that we have with the Food and Drug Administration.
Yeah.
And how many big corporation, big pharma people are in the FDA. And there was a just complete failure of everybody. And I think it's because everybody, not just this big corporation, but everybody, they either had influence or they had some type of nepotism with somebody, or they had money. They got greedy.
No. Glenn Lawrence dropped again. I mean, we kind of saw that coming because, out
So
in the
I
middle.
hate to just blame it on one entity is kind of a failure to understand the whole reality.
I mean, they need to place blame somewhere, right? Let me read this really quick. Grid One and Glenn Lawrence, congrats again on winning awards at the 2024 NPC Annual Live Stream Awards. Well deserved. That's correct. I did walk away with a W as the best, most inspirational live podcast or live streamer. Yeah, most inspirational. I didn't realize I was that inspirational, but it's cool. Hi, Lindsay. How are you?
Testing.
We can hear you.
Okay, good. I was
Awesome.
expecting it not to work. Just joining, and I didn't want to interrupt the current topic. I had comments on the previous one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead with your comments on the previous one.
Okay. I've been thinking lately how much our government and what we do in taxes is just like the fiefdom. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Is it fiefdom or fiefdom?
It's actually, it could go either way. Depends on your region.
Okay, good. I'll call it fiefdom. And I was comparing taxes and how our government is versus 13th and 14th centuries.
Yes.
And I thought, you know what? It's always somewhat been the same.
Yeah.
Maybe even improved in some ways and gotten worse in old ways. And they used to do it like in the 13th century where you would share, if you had sheep, you would share some meat from the sheep, or if you didn't really have much and you were poor, they would, the lords would make you work on the land. That was part of your taxes, and you worked for free. You gave that.
Oh, you were talking about my question about why is it that I need to pay 40% of my income to the federal government?
A little bit, and then I was comparing it to that, And then in England, later in the 14th century, they started
I
collecting
have
more.
2 John Mosmans. John, are
Yeah,
you
this
having?
happens on my phone. For some reason, with the Streamlabs, I've noticed this happens where
Oh,
if I
okay.
click out of something, it clicks back out, but then I can't get back in. And so
Oh,
the
yeah.
one that's not talking, I guess you could kick.
Yeah.
In 14th, they would take 3 days' pay, which is
Yeah.
a big chunk for
Right.
those days, big chunk. And they would say, everyone over age 15, you need to pay that. So think about it now. We don't,
hmm
we don't directly have to pay taxes when we're 15, but we still get taxed in a way if you go to a restaurant or whatever it is.
Right. But the difference with the taxes, when we're talking about
It's a big chunk of your salary.
yeah, the vassals versus the lord and vassal paradigm is that the vassals typically did not own the land. As a matter of fact, that was key, is that they didn't own land. And what was the other there? And somebody will correct me on this, but there was another difference between they were free men, they were not servants or slaves, but they were vassals. And there was 2 important distinctions. Because I've heard this argument before, is that it's always been this way, but and it comes from the European idea of servant and vassal.
Well, what about eminent domain? There goes the first part of your argument, because if a school wants to move in and they want your land to build a lab on for the school, they'll buy you out. It's not,
Right, but they
it's
have to buy you out. So again,
Right.
in the olden days, the king
They
would
just took
say,
it.
"I'm going to build a new castle over there. Fucking move." And you
The
had to.
question is, do you really own your land?
So the way that they would work
Well,
in feudal
one second,
times.
John, give me
Yeah.
1 second, buddy, and I'm going to let you go. Tim Hale, my Jan 6 buddy, is in the house on Jan 6. You got to come up. You got to come up, sir, as soon as you get a chance. You guys all know Tim Hale. He did 3 years for Jan 6. So anyway, go ahead, John Mosman.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I have studied a little bit about feudal system in Europe and all that. So what the vassals were is they were usually, like, a lot of the times they were knights, or they were people within a king's court. And basically the best way of explaining it is that they were kind of like a governor, and they were given land and they were given a castle. It didn't belong to them. It belonged to the king, but they were given that to manage that estate, right? And to also duel out the king's will. And so that is what that was the reason what a vassal was. So a lot of times they did have a lot of special
Well,
privileges.
there was also an agreement, right, John?
Yes.
There was literally a contract between the king or the baron or whoever whatever position.
Right.
There was a contract between that individual and the vassal who was being paid or whatever. So
right. And when you go back to like the Magna Carta situation, you had a lot of those rich landowners. There were some people who had land, and there were people who were given property by the king because of homage. And then King John took that back, and he actually went back on his word, which is what caused the signing of the Magna Carta and all that.
Yes, right. And they were not constantly negotiating those deals as well, where if they had if they knew they were going to have a bad harvest, they would go to the king and say, "Hey, I can't do this." But you also have to understand this was the earliest form of business as well. So if I was a landowner, right, and maybe I didn't have a lot, maybe I only had a few hundred acres or whatever, and then if I did that, if I was that guy, and then but I need a loan, right? Like I need to buy cattle. I don't have enough money, and maybe I've had a bad harvest last couple of years. Maybe what am I trying to think of? Disease killed a bunch of my livestock, or weather. Maybe we had a really hard winter and they starved or some shit. I don't know. I'm not a farmer.
Yeah.
But I need money to buy more stock, or I'm going to expand, right? Like
Right.
my neighbor died, his widow becomes part of my family or my clan. And so I now have all of this extra land. I need more livestock to put, whatever the fuck it is.
Right.
I would
and that
go
was one of the good things
to,
about the Dark Ages too. I hate that people call it the Dark Ages because they were actually really good times for a lot of people. But one of the things that they had in those times is they actually had what they called the guild system. So let's say you and I were bakers, Grid. We would come to the guild system and we would work together with other people in the guild system, and we would make agreements. Like I'd say, okay, I'll bake the cakes and you bake the bread. You know what I'm saying? Like there would be agreement on there, and there was this kind of commonality where people were looking out for each other, you know?
So, but we would go to, but if I needed that money, or I needed a loan, or I needed like I would go to the king or the baron or the duke or whoever, whatever official, that I lived under, right, or whatever government, and I would say, hey, I need a loan for X amount. And I would write out a contract where I would have to give him back, so many young cows or, whatever, so many bushels of grain, whatever the deal was. Right. And that's how that would, and that was some of the earliest forms of actual business that we have examples of. So I don't see how it actually reflects in modernity. In modernity, I don't go as an individual or even as a family. I don't go to my governor and say, look, I can't pay my taxes, so I'm going to need an extension.
But if you were a banker, you could, or if you were like,
right. Well, maybe I could, but so we've actually, I don't think that we can tie back current systems to feudal times.
I said that I just sounded really mad. I'm not mad. I just made the claim that in a lot of ways it's the same, and I said, yeah, in a lot of ways it's more progressive. Like you don't have 15-year-olds giving part of their belongings, but wasn't it also similar maybe in the way that it went toward imperialistic defensive aims mostly?
John, I'm going to kick one of you. If it kicks you off,
I'll talk. If I talk right now, you can see which one's is the bad one. There you go.
Gotcha. All right. So that did that, and now I don't know if I want to bring Imperius up. He usually behaves himself, but I can't always get. I'd rather just continue the flow of the discussion. But Imperius, you better behave, and I've got Tim coming up as well. So, but
I'm always good.
You generally be okay, but again, unfortunately, I wish the discussion this week was why I should spend, why I should give the government 40% of what I own. However, that unfortunately is not what we're talking about this time. That actually comes from the other night. Based Oracle was arguing, or was debating, if you want to call it that, with Flow State. Right. And the subject was, do the rich pay their share, or the rich should pay their share, or some shit like that. It was really hilarious.
Hey guys, did you know some drivers?
Oh, hold on, I got a phone call. Mosman, keep it going.
Well, you know what? It's kind of like asking the question, why after I divorce Lindsay do I got to pay her 40% afterwards too? It's one of those. It's those unanswerable questions. It's just
I would only make one distinction with what you were saying there, Lindsay, and that is during feudal times. I wouldn't say that was colonial or imperialistic. I think that kind of developed later within Great Britain.
So none of it, or not a small portion, went towards defense and attacks, correct?
Yeah, there was defense and tax, but here's the other thing about the feudal system was that the lords provided almost everything for everyone that was under their care. They provided food, so it wasn't like you had to go to the grocery store, or it wasn't like you went and had to, everyone had a job. So there were hunters and they would go out and hunt. You had farmers, they would do the cattle raising. Everybody contributed to the overall estate, and those things were then provided. Now, there would be times where, obviously the lords, whoever was the lord or the vassals, they would get the fair shit. They would get to eat
Right.
first,
And they weren't
But
arbitrary. I mean, they were arbitrary too. I mean, didn't they have leanings and favorites, and just like our government does today?
of course, there's always going to be some type of favoritism, and there's always going to be some type of injustice. It's just this notion that the Dark Ages, part of the reason why we call it the Dark Ages, actually more has to do with the fact that less people were educated, right? Like the only people who were educated were people who could learn languages like Latin, and that would only be people who were like your doctors, your priests. And so that is really kind of where, in a lot of common day people who went to the church, they couldn't read, they didn't have access to a Bible. So they relied completely 100% on the church to tell them things. And of course, by the time of the Reformation, you see where that got a lot of people. So, there were it wasn't a perfect time, but it's not what it is now. And I think the amount of greed and the amount of the fact that, we've kind of offsetted things as we got out of the agrarian age and into the industrial age, which has put more emphasis on us as individuals being actual slaves of working at least a certain amount of hours to go out and pay for things, which we get taxed on. So you get taxed on doing everything. So it's kind of insane.
It's also worth noting the Dark Ages, as he was indicating, it is a misnomer. So the Dark Ages is not actually even synonymous with medieval times. So the Dark Ages is really like the first few centuries with the fall of the Roman Empire.
Exactly. Yeah.
There was actually quite a lot of progress throughout the medieval ages, but the Enlightenment philosophy, or during the Enlightenment, people kind of looked to anything before the Renaissance as pretty much backwards dog shit, which is not correct. Yeah.
Which and a lot of that was because there was an idea in the Enlightenment that people as individuals were now getting access to information that they could take for themselves, and there became a hubris, right? That kind of came out of that, and we've always looked at people and said those people were just low educated people, and it wasn't so much that they were low educated. It's like there was a reason why, like there was no reason for a blacksmith to learn Latin. It had no bearing in his craft, right?
Civilization. It's so easy a caveman can do it.
Both governments to me are under the auspices. Still, they have a lot of likenesses to me. I think you three have kind of proven that I'm not so hot in that claim right now. But I think both of the systems are structured under the auspices of a collectivist, humane society, and that they really aren't, and that it is not going to be fair. It is not going to be allocated properly. It is not going to. You have to belong to a system, any system. You have to kowtow to whatever government or lords there is, and you have to deal with misallocated funds. You don't get a say. That's the price. And so,
well, and there is a differential thing, which is that in medieval Europe, they were all guided by a moral system that was based in Christian truth. And so there was things like taking care of people. For example, I tell this to a lot of people on the second day of Christmas, which yesterday was the last day of Christmas, technically, but on the 26th, on St. Stephen's Day, there was actually a song called Good King Wenceslas, who was the Hungarian, it was like modern day Czechoslovakia. But like he went out and with his servant, he went out and would hunt. And on that day, they would actually feed the lower people in the caste system, if you will, the servants and all that. They would get to eat first, and then the king ate very last. And so there are things where you have that. Whereas I think now in America, I think you can see that a lot of the greed and a lot of the things, part of it comes from capitalism that is overranked. That becomes without morality. And then also you'll get also the kind of idea of socialism and this idea of people who are in position of places. And I think the other thing too is like social Darwinism has played a huge role in perverting and destroying American culture.
But would
I
you?
don't know. I'm sorry. Just one last thing. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't even know what conversation I walked into. But one other thing that I would add, just because I'm a know-it-all history nerd, is that keep in mind also, all systems are circumstantial and contextual. So like even feudalism differed and varied based on where it was in Europe. There was not one single cohesive system.
That's true.
Yeah.
Which is why in Eastern Europe it was better than it was in Western Europe for a long time.
Shit.
Hey, Tim Hale, how are you, sir?
I'm good. Happy anniversary, right?
Right. I was gonna say that. I was gonna say. So, are you celebrating your anniversary of becoming a criminal today, or?
I'm just celebrating the beginning of the end, I guess. Looking forward to my boy. The boys are back in town. We're putting the band back together. I think. You know what I mean?
Band is back together.
Few weeks. My dogs are gonna be out. We're gonna be out in all kinds of feds and snitches and shit. And I'm looking forward to the chaos. No,
I'm interested to see where it goes with all of the investigations into the Fed itself.
Yeah.
Well, so I know you are. I know absolutely. For those of the audience that don't know, Mr. Tim Hale is. Tim, give us a short rundown.
I'm Tim Hale. Fucking awesome. No, I'm just some schmuck from New Jersey. I got entrapped on January 6th. I got set up by the feds, and then I spent 3 years behind bars for walking through the Capitol for 40 minutes. So that's my story. How are you guys? No, I just wanted to jump in here. I gotta bounce in a little bit, but
okay.
I appreciate. I just wanted to jump in because I figured I just assumed you would be doing something. I just had this little.
Well, so actually, I always do a stream on Monday and Thursday. I always do a daytime stream. I may start doing. I might start doing some more, but Monday and Thursday we always do a daytime stream. So
no. This was fate. Don't ruin it.
It was fate. But
I could just.
And I'm doing debate prep. Do you want to hear this prompt? You're going to love this. You want to hear this?
Okay.
All right.
Shoot.
This is a very long prompt. You may need to take notes. The consulting firm McKinsey reached a lenient deal with the Biden Justice Department for its role in the opioid crisis the United States is facing. McKinsey was accused of turbocharging, quotations, the sales of Purdue Pharma's OxyContin by getting the company to target pharmacists that were irresponsibly prescribing the medication. This happened despite McKinsey being well aware of the risk the drug posed. Independent from this, an illicit drug legalization movement has been growing in the United States. However, if successful, would that birth many more Purdue Pharmas and McKinsey's, organizations that seek to push dangerous drugs for profits regardless of the consequences? Often, these discussions focus on relieving the prosecutorial threat from consumers. But should we instead focus on the rapacious producers who would look at vulnerable Americans as a profit center? Even if we should have the freedom to take whatever drugs we want, should we also have the freedom to sell whatever drugs people will buy? There you go.
Great question.
You were right. It was long. That's interesting. So basically is the framing really about the right to choose to do drugs, and then also the about corporate greed?
So what
he's saying is that although there's free choice, is free choice limited in the aspect that these companies are using bad actors to further their own wealth in the illusion of a free choice, because it's a system that's feeding itself. You have the addicts who are going to the same bad actor doctors who keep prescribing them the same things. And then these pharmaceuticals are pushing onto those doctors to sell more or to give these addicts more. And he's saying, is that really okay, sorry, go ahead, Grid. I'm sorry, I did professional debate.
You're close, Imperious. I think my interpretation is this is written by a leftist who's trying to sound like a libertarian to draw out the argument against government oversight.
Well, it should be resolved. Should there be accountability and some type of parameters or legal structure involving the types of advertisement or lobbying that pharmaceuticals should be involved with? That should be the resolved question.
I think this would ultimately devolve into what your conception of rights even are. If you think rights are just, yeah, I don't. I know a lot of people probably in this panel probably, when debating rights, it's usually probably the force applicator argument. My definition of rights has always been really just a colloquial definition, which is a just or moral claim to something. So if the argument is you have a just or moral claim to do heroin or to sell heroin, I think that's nonsensical and contradictory. But yeah, I don't know. I don't worship the free market, so I have no problem regulating corporations and telling them they can't sell poison. I also don't think you have a right to do heroin. So, and but as a history major too, I also know that like people will have their own arguments against the drug war, but especially like when you look at like Vietnam and you look, one of my favorite authors is Alfred McCoy. He's a professor. He wrote a book called The Politics of Heroin in Southeast Asia, and he exposed that the CIA was actually trafficking opium and then refining it in Europe with Corsican gangsters and the Sicilian mafia. And basically, the modern heroin trade was actually created by America and the West broadly.
Yeah, they took it through Sicily, and then they took it through Turkey, and then they would come back and give it to people like Frank Lucas in Harlem, and the Italian gangsters were behind that too, and they had him in power so he could take advantage of that and just push all of that shit into Harlem.
Yeah. So there is a matter there's an element of realpolitik here to where you have the ideal that you're debating, like the ideal of what you believe versus the reality of how the political system works and how it has historically worked. Right. And so you got any argument around drugs really has to balance those two things: the realism and then the ideal of how the state should function. So, but
to me, the interesting phrasing in all of that is lenient deal with Biden, and given the fact that we had that CEO murder. Like a lot of liberals, they have an issue with what they see as corporations taking advantage of people. And so my question would be, okay, can we agree that Biden and Democrats now are big corporation? And they have a
problem with the wrong corporations taking advantage. It's not all corporations. They're perfectly happy. They're perfectly happy with the Johnson it's not Johnson anymore. It's anyway, the guys who own Gerber baby food. They're perfectly happy with those guys owning 95% of the baby food market and infant formula. That's fine. Who cares? They're happy with that. That's okay. It's only when it's only when they disagree with the company or the company doesn't toe their line or share their ideals.
And if they don't have rainbows on their products. Or
Hey, Grid, I'm surprised you're not watching the certification right now and watching.
No.
It's a humbling experience for her.
So first of all, I've had a very busy morning, and it was already it was a known quantity. Procter & Gamble, thank you, Stephen. But it's not just that they own these. They allow certain. They're okay with certain companies owning the markets. They're also the entire American culture, and I'm not going to distinguish between left, right, and center here. Has a very revisionist version of history in their head. It doesn't matter who you're talking to. We all tend to pick the version of history we like the best, and that's the piece that we want to hang on to. For example, in this country, back in the late 1800s into the early 1900s, there were opium dens in every large city, especially New York City, like legit opium dens. And laudanum was sold over the counter, which was like mostly heroin.
Yeah. You look at Bayer, like Bayer, aspirin and shit like that. Bayer used to sell heroin on the shelf.
Right, yeah. Bayer, yeah, Bayer. When you said Bayer, never mind. I'm from the South, so we say Bayer. But you're right. And you could, up until the 1960s, Coca-Cola had cocaine in it.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea that we've always thought that drugs were bad, or we couldn't control them, is, I think, a little disingenuous. I think
Coca-Cola needs to go back to that.
Look at when I can give you a perfect example, man. When Lindsay takes that Molly, dude, when she comes over, I'm telling you, it's on a level.
I told you, behave yourself.
Yeah, but sir, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
No, I think Coca-Cola should definitely go back to that. I'd buy that for $1.
Little pick me up. It'll finally be worth the $5 a bottle you pay for it.
Yeah. I'll even buy the freaking I'll even buy the polar bear. They dress up like Santa to go along with it.
That's funny.
I gotta go. I got an interview.
This is the days of Coke and the Coke. Yeah. Yeah. So
Tim,
anyway,
it was good to meet you.
Yeah, Grid, how old were you in the 80s?
In the 80s, I was.
What are you, like 20s, mid 20s?
I was like 10. I was in 1980. I was 9 years old.
Okay, so you were like teenager though in the mid 80s, like 86.
Yeah.
Do you remember, like, if you go to a pawn store now and ask for 80s jewelry, do you know that like 90% of them have a little place to unscrew and put cocaine in?
I'm sure it does.
Yeah, that if you look, it's a funny little piece of trivia there, Grid.
Yeah. So, Lindsay, what's your take on this?
Well, I just wanted to say, yeah, Tim, you don't belong in prison. You're very intelligent.
Well, he didn't break any laws, so that's the first thing.
Yeah, and I didn't want to talk over anything else you might want to add. First of all.
Oh no, we can talk about Tim being shouldn't be in prison. He literally just walked around. He was. I had to actually check it out because he came the first time he came on my show. He was like, I didn't do anything, and I'm like, okay, yeah. Literally everybody in prison says I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Hey, Tim.
Innocent. And then, but Tim Hale actually was. He's legit. He really didn't do anything. He just sort of wandered around. He didn't piss on anybody's desk. He didn't, shit in anybody's office house shoes or anything like that.
Tim, were you?
Video didn't happen.
While you were imprisoned, were you groped by Nancy Pelosi by any chance? Did she come by the cell and try to exchange sexual favors for?
Dude, Imperious, what's with
you? I don't recall that. I think not that it wouldn't happen. It's just I think normally she'd be drinking at the time that you're thinking of.
Well, I would assume she's coming by trying to sell herself for another for a thrill.
He's always thinking about sex, isn't he?
I don't think there's a way for her to sell herself any more than she already has. I think she's actually maxed out. I think she's just along for the ride at this point. Grid, I gotta go. Hey, Lindsay, thank you for the kind words. You're a lamb. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me on, Grid. Happy Jan 6, everybody.
Always happy to have you on, sir. We'll have to have you on. We'll have to have you on again where you can tell the story of your acquittal, or not acquittal, but your pardon official day that Tim is no longer a felon.
Hell yeah. Hey, and you know what? I have all this fucking video too. If you want to show your audience that they fucking lied about everything, I'd be happy to show that to you too. Hey, everybody, keep in touch with yourselves, all right? Keep in touch with yourselves and have a good one. Take it deep.
Yeah. We'll watch that video one night.
So bringing it back a little bit, don't you see the parallels between the prostitution argument and the drug one, which is basically it boils down to a contest between morality and capitalism? Is this morality, rights, and capitalism? Human rights, sex, with sex and what you want to do with your own body, who you do it with.
But I don't honestly have a problem with prostitution.
But I'm talking about the
Only
argument
if they're hot.
itself. And,
Only if they're really hot.
okay, be quiet. I think we come to the similar conclusion with prostitution, where we have half of the people saying, "Leave me alone, get out of my business," and then some people make stupid arguments like, "Well, if men, don't have prostitutes, they're going to act out and this and that," which I believe is a slippery slope, fallacious
I
argument.
don't think you've ever heard that on this channel. That would be.
I have heard that so much.
Well, not here you hadn't.
Okay.
Yeah, what? Everybody's like, what?
Well,
Nobody's ever said that.
Well, they were saying if an
The
argument.
morality argument against prostitution is not that there should not be I mean, obviously, I feel like there should not be prostitutes, because I feel like that women should value themselves more and have a higher standard for their conduct. However, from a law point of view, I don't know. So I do not believe that we can legislate morality. You are either moral or you are immoral.
Juxtapose
I can't
that.
stop you from being one way or the other.
Correct. Juxtapose that with people who do drugs and want to live.
I have the
their own
same
life.
argument with drugs. I don't care if you do drugs at all. You are perfectly free to ruin your life. You are perfectly free to become a babbling idiot with your brain so cooked on meth that you don't know who you are.
And
You're
people
perfectly free to do that. However, the problem comes in is if you're cooked out on meth and you come into my backyard trying to steal my shit. Now we've got a problem.
I think prostitution can possibly infringe on individuals' lives too. For example, when they get involve more sex trafficking and underage. So I'm trying to, I don't want to go into prostitution.
Well, hold on. So, but we're conflating a few things here. Well, Mosman dropped off. He's on a phone, so it's tough. Let's not conflate a couple of things here. First of all, whether or not prostitution leads to sex trafficking is irrelevant. Most sex trafficking is
correlation.
Most prostitution is, most sex trafficking has more to do with making pornography and selling videos of acts to a bunch of people, which is perfectly legal. That's perfectly legal. You can do that.
I disagree because and too bad I didn't know we were going to discuss this, so I don't have any empirical data to back me up, right?
Okay.
Great. But I have listened to other arguments on this, and they do have empirical data to back it up, that it's highly correlated with trafficking is highly correlated with prostitution and underage sex crimes. So that would be another argument against it.
This is one of those things that I think that people talk about, but they can't prove. They just say that it must be so, and therefore it is.
You just heard. You didn't hear me say.
Well, we do know that there are a lot of people who, especially underage girls, that get into prostitution, that become.
It's backed up by empirical data.
They become part of the sex trade and whatnot. I mean,
we were specifically talking about sex trafficking. That's like they get some woman in China over here to work her way off.
It could be. It doesn't just mean taking them to another country. It's also the kind of stuff that pimps do with especially underage girls in urban areas. We know that from all the undercover video work that's been done with live action. But I want to say this. You're right. I think Lindsay's right. There is a moral question there. And the question, and that is kind of the issue, which is what is a higher moral value, doing the right thing or having the ability to have the freedom to exchange in products, even to the point where it would cause people to engage in products or services which are immoral or lead to destructive things.
So
the problem with that, though, is that we enter into another issue, which is there is another kind of type of morality when it comes to government, which I think was a thing that was brought up by Tim, which is who can be the arbiter of such things, because the government often, especially in the drug issue, has been the biggest contributor of it. You know, so it's.
So I want to dial back just a little bit. First of all, I want to on the prostitution issue. So first, while there are people that are obviously forced into it, I think that I don't know that correlates to that being the largest portion of it. Okay, now they may be forced
we
to
have no way of
continue
quantifying that. Yeah.
I do not have those numbers.
And correlation is not causation. And so I'm not going to. I think that's one of those slippery slope arguments where we just start taking a lot of things for granted that
But
I just
have
don't believe.
empirical data to back it up that the two things, sex trafficking and prostitution, are highly correlated with one another. And that doesn't mean it causes it, but that does mean it's a factor.
Well, you're selling yourself. I mean, what? I mean, so hold on. Stop. If you make the decision to sell yourself, it doesn't. At that point, does it? What is the additional? Where are we going with sex trafficking? You have made the decision to sell yourself. Whether that's because some pimp lied to you and gave you this rosy story, whether it was because you decided to do porno and then you couldn't do porno anymore, and now you're out on the streets selling.
There's still agency on the person.
Regardless of how you got there, you at some point made a decision to do it.
Right, and so the similarity is, I made the decision to do drugs, and that's how.
Yeah, you make the decision to do drugs, and I don't care that you do that.
Right. I'm just making that parallel. That's
right,
all.
and I don't care if a woman decides to become a prostitute.
Well, yeah, you could take that stance. I'm not going to say you can't.
Why would anyone care if a woman decides to sell herself?
That's one more piece of fine ass that I would want to have. That's why.
Imperious, but calm down.
No, I'm just saying, great. I think laws in general, laws are a moral paradigm, anyways. I mean, they are
right. I understand that.
You know what I'm saying. So I think we would make a law.
That we try and legislate morality, we fuck it up because you can't do it.
Sure. Well, I think it depends on the how, to the extent to which. Look, I think you can regulate that you don't want any kind of prostitution being seen in the public. You see what I'm saying? Like, there's already you could regulate people walking around advertising it. You could regulate, things like that. So I mean, look, I personally would regulate it all. Yeah, but I'm saying is even in your paradigm of morality, you still would regulate certain things. Drug use, for example, you wouldn't allow loitering with drug use where you're shooting up outside on the street.
Right. So that's no longer your decision just to do it. Now it's out in the public, right? So again, and I should have drawn this.
Yeah, that's all I was saying. I don't necessarily
earlier is that it's just like pot, right? Let's just use pot for an example. There's so many, me personally, I don't see why anybody wants to do it. I've never smoked pot. I don't want to smoke pot. I have no interest in it whatsoever. However, all of a sudden, it starts getting legalized everywhere. But the problem isn't that I never gave a shit whether it was legal or illegal. I just don't want to see it out in the street because now I have to smell it. Now you're interfering with
a fully naked woman and man next door bending over, potting plants in their yard.
Because I can't see it. It's not my. It's their yard.
They're playing.
It's their yard. If you're out on your back porch smoking on your property, I don't care. If you're walking down the sidewalk puffing a big ass fucking doobie, I have a problem with that. Do you not understand the difference? Is it hard to understand the difference? And morality doesn't even enter into the question.
I think it's
the morality has nothing to do with that.
I don't want to piss you off, but it's
really a reflection of how much you
piss me off. And I often understand that you can't make me mad, and B, any tone that you register is part of the show, and I have nothing against anybody.
Any kind of look, it's to the extent to which you're going to impose your paradigm on someone is what you're going to do. Look, if you have the will to say, look, we don't want, you can be like, you don't want to be like Singapore. You can be like Singapore, where it's like the death penalty for any drugs, and people don't do drugs.
In China,
or China.
If you were caught with a illegal drug like opium, pot, cocaine, death penalty. They don't fuck around.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
have
and
mobile-
also this is China that also has some of the worst human rights violations as well. So like, let's put this in consideration for all things.
Yeah, but so do we. I mean, we have enough human right. I mean, if you want to, you can categorize everything.
Well, let's not do a competition to see who's the most fucked in the world.
No,
I like what
I'm just
Silvar
saying,
Ogre
this
says
is like the whole
here.
reason why what Imperius is saying about laws having morality in them. That is just that's it. There obviously is a moral idea that some people have in enforcing them, but the laws themselves do not create, nor do they.
Yeah.
All
Make
of these
morality.
things that we're talking about, prostitution, and
Well, I think they kind of do, because I mean, the morality, if you want to kill somebody, and in some cultures it used to be, I mean, prevalent and exacerbated and actually promoted to kill your fellow person. Like, yeah, anyone's a challenge to you. So, I mean, that is a moral. It is, again, all laws stem from a type of morality. If you value,
again, I think Silvar says this really well. Not necessarily your morality or a correct morality. Morality is the justification for all law.
Exactly, a type of a paradigm of morality.
Yeah, whether or not, and again, but you can't legislate morality. You just can't. People have.
Well, when you legislate morality, you are then opening your government up to being.
You can. It's just to the extent you which you're going to go about doing it. That's what it really is.
Right.
So you guys think the risk to benefit ratio for, say, legalizing prostitution and legalizing drugs is worth it?
And it really depends.
I believe that there are holistic ways which we can treat the issue without going about making it illegal. The problem with making something illegal is that now you're forcing something, and you're using the force of power of the government, which we have seen over time does not necessarily stem the behavior. So I think we have to address the issues of what causes a lot of people to get into drugs. We have to look at the issues that cause people to get into prostitution, and I think you will see that most of those things usually result from some type of trauma in early life, and so therefore we have to look at how do we improve the family, how do we make things locally, not through the force of the federal government, mind you, because I don't believe the federal government has the mandate, nor should it.
But it's a catch-22.
Well, of course it is.
Okay.
Well, there'll always be a catch-22. That's the problem.
Right. I mean, it's like, how do I explain this? So your big concern, Lindsay, I don't want to straw man you here. I want to steel man this back to you a little bit. Your concern is that if we reduce or eliminate laws against prostitution, drugs, that kind of thing, then and mostly we'll just pick on prostitution. Your concern is then that there's an even higher amount, the resultant effect of that will be a higher amount of sex trafficking, and to you that is an issue.
Almost.
Well, help me out here.
The part almost perfect, but with in the middle of what you said, I'm trying to articulate this statement.
Yeah, please.
This is not just about prostitution. This goes across all arguments.
Mm-hmm.
And what was your accusation in the slippery slope thing? I agree with you that would technically be a slippery slope and therefore fallacious if you did not add the past history with those things actually being legal at one point, and seeing from European nations who legalized drugs, for example, countries before us, what has happened in those situations. So it's not like I'm talking out of the blue and, Lindsay's fearing this and fearing
But you're conflating, though. First of all, we can't ever. We can't ever compare what happens in a European nation with what happens in the United States of America, because our laws are completely different.
History repeats itself often, right? Isn't that a problem?
No, you can't conflate. You cannot point to something in Europe that's happened in the U.S. in the same way.
I don't see why you can't learn lessons from the past and say, hey, you
We
know
can
what?
learn that. That's not what you said.
What
Yeah.
happened
That's
in
not what you
in
said.
Europe when they legalized drugs?
You said that, yes, right. You said that when these countries have done this, this is what's
Right.
happened.
Right.
They also they don't have firearms.
Well, they use knives.
We do.
If you want to put weaponry.
They
in
have
it.
an exceedingly high level of death and destruction and mayhem, and we don't. So you can't draw a comparison between us and European countries.
They also have a different philosophy on how government.
Well, culture. I think you're meaning
Yes.
culture, not philosophy. Culture.
Well, there's an ideological, philosophical
Sure.
idea behind
Go
it.
with
But yeah, culturally, whatever you want to use. But
We can
again,
do it with war strategies. Why can't we do it with drugs? Just simply because we have a different economic system. I mean, basically,
no, because we have a different culture, because we are a different society, and what we can't use. This is a problem. And the left does this often. Is they try and say, well, this works in England, it would work here, but that's not how it's never worked that way, ever.
like
How
for
is that
example,
accomplished?
Norway, people talk about socialism in places like Norway, and yet we wouldn't be able to duplicate what Norway has because there is actually a high moral system within their culture that we don't have in American culture because because of how they're ingrained with having a Christian. Even though a lot of them have gone away from probably some of those Christian things,
It's the same with
they
us.
still have the benefit of having that Christian a moral system in their country. And
we have
so,
too.
well, not the same way.
It's pervasive and it's woven ubiquitously throughout the United States that we have at least a very subtle underplaying of Christian morality.
Yeah, but it's a different type of Christian ethic because it's based in Protestantism. It's based in things like evangelicalism, and it's based in stuff like the Quakers, who really wanted to separate themselves from having a state or government church.
So as much as I'd like to argue with the European standard, I have to kind of truncate things a little bit. So let me go here. When we banned alcohol and prohibition, that did not end well for anybody. Every time we try and ban something in this country, it fails miserably.
It depends. I mean, we banned incest, and that's fine. I mean,
That would be
we haven't banned incest. Why do people think that we have done that?
You have.
Maryland,
It is illegal.
Connecticut. There are other states.
In most states, it is, and I think between immediate family, intercourse still is. I think if you're talking like first cousins,
yet it still happens.
Yeah, but it did minuscule it compared to what it was back in the day.
I
don't think it was because of a law that it became minuscule. I think it became the development and culture in society that over time.
Yeah, but that's part of that making a law.
Again, that's a bad argument to bring up. That's a horrible point. But anyway, anytime we've tried to ban anything,
illegal stigmatizes something. It's not always. I know we always point to like alcoholism, but that's because alcoholism is like a fundamentally ingrained thing in our. Remember, for most of human history, we were drunk because there wasn't fresh water around. The founding fathers were drunk writing the Constitution because there wasn't all that.
They were drunk.
I don't know about that.
They were. Read up.
He's right.
Oh my
God.
God.
I don't. He's being.
Look, I'm not saying they were three sheets to the wind, but I'm saying they were buzzed.
He's being facetious. He's saying that the thing that you drank back in the day was grog, which was a very low alcohol content. It wasn't water, but it wasn't alcohol. It wasn't beer either.
It was like 0.5 or 0.7%.
It was very, but it was the thing is that the alcohol killed bacteria, and the water was safe.
Yeah, you need to filter the.
They weren't drinking They weren't drinking whiskey. They weren't drinking.
It's not like they were taking like vodka shots. No.
Yeah. So I mean, when they weren't drinking like what we would consider beer, right? Like anyway.
No, it's just that they drank so much because it was like that was that eventually they were buzzed a little bit. That's why a lot of the things got heated a lot. If you read
It's a classic slippery slope, but you just accused me of that.
What are you talking about?
Going back to
the argument. Oh, okay.
Grid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where he said, because this happened before when we tried to make alcohol illegal, it's going to
Right.
happen again. You just said that was a slippery slope on my end.
That's not a slippery slope, though. That did happen. That's how that works. Is in this
Yes,
country,
and things did
everything
happen.
every time you try and ban something in this country, there's a workaround. And I say every time we've banned drugs. How has the war on drugs gone for us?
Shitty.
Okay. How has the war on prostitution gone for us?
I don't think we regulated at all, and it's on its own thing, and it hasn't
Absolutely
stopped
been regulated since the 60s, since probably since the 1940s. Prostitution's been in.
Yeah, but I think a lot of it is we don't try to look at, like, for example, like the money we spend on, quote, the war on homelessness. Didn't California lose like $25 billion on the
Well,
you could house every single person in California for $25 billion.
Yeah, so but okay, that's actually an example of we that would actually go to Lindsay's point, in that we had vagrancy laws in this country up until about 1920 or 1930, when they started to be phased out because they were deemed to be what's the word I'm looking for?
Inhumane.
Yeah, inhumane, because you couldn't imprison somebody for
it's like, oh, it's not illegal to be homeless, you know.
Yeah, it's not illegal to not have any money, right? And so so vagrancy, public indecency, those kind of things, those started, and I think by about probably late 50s, they were mostly gone, right? So that would actually go to her point, right? But when we reduced all those laws, we now have people who live. We have homeless towns and all of that. Now we've got. We're no longer making it a crime to not have any money, but we're making it a crime to establish those towns, and it's going to be interesting going forward, because I believe some people they just don't want to have a home. They're nomadic.
A lot of them, you'll ask them, I want to be out here. I don't want to live in some house and shit. I'm going to listen to your roof.
Yeah, they don't want the responsibility. They don't want they don't want to worry about making money every day. They just want to. They want to be nomadic, and that's just the way it is.
They just want to be given a free phone, and given what people give them shit, and just lay around and do nothing.
Right.
One thing that confuses me about your arguments, Grid, as I'm getting to know you, is you're a Christian man, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That has a lot to do with morality and ethics, and then you say, you know what? F the drug problem, F the prostitution problems, because
I didn't say that.
People should. Okay, let me rephrase that. Let's legalize them, because people are going to do what they want to do, and I'm for individualist rights. I just don't want them in front of me, is what you're saying. Don't include them in my life. When they start to impact me, I'm not okay with them.
Because I'm a Christian, I don't believe that we force people to do things. I can't force someone to come to God. I can't force someone to be moral. I cannot force someone to do anything. Matter of fact, the Bible tells me to not do that.
But you highly value morality.
Position to do that.
You highly value morality as a Christian.
Yes, I highly value morality.
And therefore, why would you be pro these things?
I'm not pro.
Okay.
Not pro. I've never said I endorse it.
Right.
I said I don't care. I'm ambivalent. I'm ambivalent about it because God tells me that's what I'm supposed to be. I can witness, but I cannot force you to do something. I cannot force you to be a moral person.
Well, most people don't
force you to. I can't force a woman who wants to divorce her husband to not divorce her husband. That's wrong.
I think what Grid is missing here is under a secular government. Okay, like if under a government, as in like a secular-based government.
Go there, but sure, go ahead and go there.
Well, no, I think that's what you're missing. I mean, if it's a government that is secular, based off of atheistic or secular morality. I mean, Romans 13 is pretty clear that, you know, if you are a true believer, you must establish an authority that reflects God. I mean, let everyone by subjects to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except for that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God.
Given that
So,
state of mind, wouldn't you
but
think that
well, but the
somebody?
thing is okay. Look, what grid is? There's a nuance to this. There's a nuance. He's looking at it in a pragmatic way. In like, look, if you impose this kind of morality, what kind of like uprising, what kind of counterbalances? And I understand what he's saying. My hope, like you know me, I'm an absolutist, so I'm just like, if you have the will to impose it, it will be imposed. Grid's looking at it a way as like, look, if we start to make all these things illegal, when do you start losing the fabric of a coalescing kind of culture to which looks at those things as the outside, because you're making everything the outside? You get what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
And my argument,
I think Grid is. I think, am I wrong, Grid, on that? I think that's kind
I
of where
think you're taking it a little too far. But you're not that far out. I mean, look, it's just as simple as I'm not the ultimate authority. Also, I'm not the enforcer of God's will. I'm not an enforcer of anything, and neither are you, and neither is John Mosman, and neither is Imperius believes he is, because he's Catholic, and that's part of their deal, right? He believes that he can enforce God's will on specific.
No, I can't enforce anything. It's the church that does. I don't.
Yeah,
I can't.
okay, so the church.
Yeah, I can't. Like, I'm not allowed to physically be like beating people down to, like, you know what I mean? That the church can impose law, and then there's law enforcement that can. Yeah, sure.
Here's I think is a distinction in all of this, which is that, Lindsay, which is that while there are aspects of Christian ethics and morality, those aren't the supreme quote unquote values of what a Christian does or shouldn't do. In fact, the supreme values of being a Christian is to be gracious and forgiving. And so one of the things that we acknowledge is that God didn't want us to be robots. And so how do you go to a person who's lost in something, and this is where sin comes into play, who's lost in something, and you want to try to help them? Now, if you try to enforce law on them, that's not going to necessarily help them. All it does is it relegates them to a place where they can be held, where their impact on society can be lessened if they become a problem in that regard. So the reality is, yes, there is a concern, and I'm sure Grid doesn't want to see those things, and that's part of what he's saying. He says, I don't want to see those things, but I'm not going out of my way to restrict those things, because people, in order to be able to have the fullness of things, have to be able to come to that on their own volition. And and we're not even talking about not just all the crime that prohibition allowed, but there were actually immoral, degen things that happened as a result of prohibition, like the speakeasies, where people would take that underground, and it became even more of a den of iniquity.
People went blind.
What about, I mean, Lindsay, for example,
unintended consequences are a real thing. I'm sorry, Imperius. Let me just step in here for a minute. So, a couple of things. First of all, I think it's really easy to understand the actual ontology of what the Bible says, and whether or not you want to be if you want to be Orthodox about it, whether you want to be Catholic about it, whether you want to
stop you for a sincere question. If you're Orthodox about it, is that more likely that mean that you lean towards the morality aspects?
Well,
you're Orthodox.
I'm not Orthodox. The best Catholics I can tell you,
we lead toward tradition. It's just toward tradition, apostolic tradition back to the source.
Yeah.
That's what matters. And the thing is we lean on that tradition. It's not so much as we say, like, oh, we're inventing all the, like, for example, like Lindsay, I was going to say this, the example, like, being what Grid's talking about is like, look, even Catholics, Orthodox, you can't just like put people to death for being gay.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Like, you can't. Like the Pope has said, you might want to, but that's the whole faithfulness is, look, dude, every day I get cut off by people. Yeah, I may want to get out and smash people's heads with their door and crush it like a bug, but I don't get to do that. You know what I mean? That's kind of like, that is the commitment, the restraint that you have to have. You know, that's all I'm saying.
And that right there is my problem with Catholicism and Orthodoxy.
Right. And so here's the
others.
thing, Lindsay. Here's where I'm gonna try and tie all this together. We've kind of gone down a bunch of different paths. I want to try and tie it together for you. So in society, that means you, me, Imperius, John, everybody in chat, we have to have some agreement on what's acceptable in society. Okay. Mm-hmm. So we can say then that smoking pot is fine. Just don't do it in public because that's annoying to everybody in public. And that's wrong, right? You can say that all prostitution is wrong and we're going to make that illegal. We're going to make it a crime to engage in that activity because there's a large number of people who believe that it's a net negative to society and has other ramifications. And other people could argue that no, we need to make it absolutely legal, tax the shit out of it, standardize everything, and make it and that way it becomes a positive for society. And other people like me would be like, I just don't want to know. Like, I don't, like, if you want to go sell yourself, fine. I don't want to endorse it, and I don't want to have to pay people to go around and enforce a morality that we're not even sure is 100% moral to the person that's conducting.
Well, I think a lot of it is like you can put extremely strict boundaries on like when it does affect others. Like you could say, like, look, you don't have drug use, but if you do a DUI, you get 25 mandatory.
Sure. Right. And there's a balance that has to be struck between what's in the public eye and what is not. So I don't agree.
I would think, like, Grid, would we really say if there's like a really hot girl prostituting herself, we're not going to give her jail time? I mean, come on, we need some really hot girls doing that.
Imperius always coming in like that. Here's the deal, though. Imperius always making the solid points on his side. So here's the deal. I don't agree with it. Right? Like, I think it's a net negative. I think that the people involved in it are terrible people. But again, I am not in any way, shape, or form going to try and force my morality on somebody else. That would be like me telling John Mosman that I find it immoral that he wears baseball hats because I wear baseball hats. I'm the only motherfucker on the planet that can do it.
I understand that part.
That's like saying you can't tell Raging Patriot and Are We Not Men they can be booty bandits together. I mean, that's just impossible. That's it.
I knew he was wearing a baseball cap today. I knew
Where I was confused. You're taking the confusion away. I think John was right when he said you're getting the rights of the person conflated with the priorities of a Christian person. And the priorities of a Christian person is that he or she is a person first and has to look out for himself, herself, and society. But it is not necessarily number one priority is morality, because with morality, you can't enforce it. You can't make people do certain things. Right. So it's sort of
and take it in this regard. Once you start making laws to say you can't do prostitution, you can't do drugs, then people who take those laws will say, well, what are other things that we believe are net negative to society? Well, some people would say homosexual marriage. They would say homosexuality in general. They could say, like some societies do. Well, if you have,
they could say it's immoral. It could literally. How about this one, Lindsay? It is immoral in some countries for a woman over the age of 18 to not be pregnant and pledged to a man. Would you like us to make?
Yeah, why don't you just have like assigned wives and they do it through fathers by law? And like why don't we have like assignment of women per
Imperius always got to take it to that next level.
I know.
No, but let's be real here. Wouldn't Lindsay, wouldn't it be easier for you if you were like given an option of like 5 men by the government and you had to like choose one of them?
No,
but I mean, like, let's say they were at your equal level of hotness, what you deserve.
But again, once you start enforcing your morality other people.
No, it's just hotness level.
No,
Right, but I do think you
Like
can do
objectives like
something, Lindsay,
value.
that would be helpful,
Also,
which
by the
would
way,
be
Imperious, can you read the chat?
Oh yeah. Honestly, Imperius has a punchable voice, but that is just my opinion.
You do kind of have a voice of somebody wants to punch right in the nose. Got to be honest with you.
I would say this though, Lindsay. I think that if you do drugs or if you're involved in prostitution and there's other crimes that become done as a result of that activity, I think a good way of trying to stem that would be to heighten and severe those crimes that they're doing, and you know, in that regard, you would cause that would be one way of the government to try to lessen that, is to say, like, you know, for example, like when you know, in Colorado where I live, it's legal to have marijuana, you know, in all ways, however you want to do it, but they have made it extremely severe that if you are driving while under the influence of marijuana, that you get jail time. I mean, it's an instant. I mean, there's a lot of. So again, there are things you can do to protect people, and everybody wants to agree to those protections. But the question becomes when we're dealing with something as a morality question, and that becomes a difficult thing for sure.
I think a lot.
I also believe too that the best way to try to achieve these things would be for you know, for people to, I believe in the Catholic social teaching of subsidiarity. I think that is, subsidiarism is a really great teaching. And you go and you start with your church, you start with your family, you start small and you go. And then if those people don't have resources to help these people who need help, then you go to your county government, then you go to your state government. And at the very end, you go to your federal government.
Well, I think a lot of it is
hold on, Imperious. Let me, Lindsay, I want to ask your opinion here, or your position, not an opinion, your position. So, and because we kind of got, everybody kind of ran away. So, if it were the case that in our society that we decided that it was immoral and therefore wrong for women above the age of 18 to not be married with children, would you then endorse that as being, since obviously you seem to be okay with endorsing or enforcing morality through legislation?
No, that's not correct.
Okay.
I'm not okay with enforcing morality or in a way that I would be pushing my agendas and my opinions down other people's throat. I'm more in alignment with how you're thinking. Like, I'm not going to be able to stop this drug, you know, crisis. People are going to do what they want to do. I understand that. And do I think it leads to bad things, negative consequences? Sure. I haven't fully made my stance yet because I'm considering our culture. Like you said, culture means everything. And how we think of drugs and what our problems are. For example, we have prison crowding.
Do you think that when we? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
There's a lot of different drugs. Like, isn't sex a drug?
Imperious. I don't think she was done.
Oh, okay.
Considering all, I might consider taxing those things. But now, the more I listen to arguments, the more I realize that's going to take more money, more police, more institutions. It starts to become just a complete mess. And in California, really quickly, we have we legalize pot here, but it's only under a certain amount of ounces. And people always have more because they're selling it. And then those people get put in jail and clog up the system and so on and so on and so on. It creates more problems.
Yeah.
So what is the best solution? You tell me.
That kind of leads me to my other portion of, again, why it's very hard to legislate morality is because there's a lot of people that aren't moral, or they just don't agree with your morality. And so we do end up with unintended consequences like the war on drugs. We spent a shit ton of money. We didn't really do anything except promote drug use. If you want, it would be fair to say, I think, and accurately said that the war on drugs did more to promote drug use than the drug dealers themselves ever could have. It was in the papers every day.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's like, wow, that meth, that's new.
Well, and I think you're coming from a good place, Lindsay, because I think what your main concern is that there are aspects of law we would agree that should be there to help try to protect people. And I think that's where you're coming from, is trying to protect people who are going to be exposed to things. Yes, there are some people who get into it because of some of their choices. I agree with Grid there. But there are some people who do get into it because they are victimized. And so
Right.
to me, the question is, how do we protect people in that regard? And I think a big thing would be one way you could also try to approach that could possibly be, instead of making prostitution illegal, make it a crime to pimp out or have, I mean, there could be other things you do.
Again, that has to be enforced.
Right. And so, but the thing of it is that won't stop prostitution. It won't stop out pimping. And so the question becomes, what do we do? And I think the big thing is, I think we have to tend to our cultural issues, and I think we have to tend to the issues that cause people to get into these issues. And to me, I think that is where, as an anarchist, I believe we as individuals have to take more responsibility in our society and community, and not just do a blind eye to it,
Right. That was kind of where I was going to go, John. That was actually a perfect segue for me, because Lindsay, see, the thing is, I don't believe that we should legislate morality. I think that our communities have to demonstrate morality and to encourage morality through your local churches, getting involved in your own community. You're going to be way more effective, and they always have been. And that is the way it was. And this is why there wasn't an opium epidemic in New York back when opium dens were perfectly legal. And there was literally opium dens, like legit. You could just go there, smoke out for a week. It's fine.
There's a should.
I think a lot of
it actually is. And that's what we're constantly caught up in and looping and arguing about. This and this should be this way, but it's not. And then we never can come up with any solutions. That's simply a complaint. I'm not helping to solve
I understand.
the problem. What would you think about? So let me try to offer something. You
Sure.
said the first rehabilitation program should be paid for by the government for all of these people hooked on drugs and having complicated problems in their lives because of drugs, prostitution, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So what if we allocated part of the taxes, our taxes, towards that aim, taxes on drugs specifically?
Sure.
That way they'd be paying for their own care.
So I could maybe agree with that on a local level, because I think states and communities deal with things far better than the federal government. I think the biggest problem with the war on drugs and the war on prostitution and the war on anything else is the federal government gets involved, and then it becomes more of a business than anything else, and poorly run at that. So my solution would always is the same as it always is I don't have a problem with it until it's in my backyard.
It's part of our economy. That's your backyard.
Yeah. And so my state economy, like we've worked really, really hard here to not have as much. I mean, we obviously can't eradicate everything as much as I would like to. We worked really hard to not have drug issues in our schools here, right? We've worked really, really hard to keep, at least in my area, a lot of these things to a minimum. And we've been relatively successful. I'm not going to say that we're 100%. I mean, I don't think anything's 100%, but where I live, I don't lock my front door. Of course, I'm on the other side of that.
Okay, what was your address again there?
On the other side of that front door, there's an angry man with a gun, but I don't lock my front door usually. I barely ever lock my cars. I don't.
That's all. Grid, whenever I come by for a hug, you're always good for one.
But
Like
again,
the 1920s.
It's always been that way.
Lindsay, you were talking about a solution. Here's an idea that I've always had. So obviously, not every situation is the same. So we have to be able to have people dedicated towards using resources to look into some of these situations. But one of the things I think would be, from what I've read on, because I've actually talked with sex workers, I've done, talked with people who have been in that and trying to get out of it. And obviously one of the big things that they've said has been a huge thing for them is trying to have money so they could have a place to live, right? So one of the things we can do is on people who have houses and houses that are, maybe older, that maybe don't have as much value as other newer houses, people who own that, if maybe their local county government or state government could give them a tax credit for renting out those places at a discount, so that they would have a place to live and have the ability to not have to, they would have a means to have a place to live.
You do that.
And you would obviously have to have some kind of person involved that would say, hey, look, this is what we're going to have you do. We're going to have this information. We're going to go through a background, all that kind of stuff. But I think those kinds of things can be done on a local level for sure.
I'm not gonna...
Can you just use laws to like mechanize like cultural like change, like all that? It's not so much you have to force people. What you do is you create a society through like funding of culture and stuff like that to minimize certain activities so much that they're stigmatized so much that it's so minuscule that it's like almost, irrelevant. It's hard to kill an idea, but if you're going to do it, you would just you kind of push it in the corner through culture so much. Just how we did through like, having kids, out of wedlock. It was all through culture for 30 years, and now everyone does it. And it's like, like that one time that was just completely invincible.
They take pride in it, Imperius. Let me answer. I got Ghost 1978 was channeling his inner Imperius. Each prostitute can have a barcode on them to scan to report current and previous STDs and more information. That's a way of the future. I like it a lot. That way you can evaluate, if she's 5-star or not. So.
Well, Grid, instead of a barcode, she has a Grid, not a barcode, a click code. You just have it. You have a bar right above it. You just scan it.
Yeah. You use the AI and you like scan her and that'd be great. Be the best deterrent to prostitution is an app that lets you scan the crowd and it identifies all the whores.
Yeah, and how many each have partner have had? That'll end that'll end everything. They'll become virgins the next day.
That would be great. Now, would you be in favor of that, Lindsay? Would that
only
level
if you could do it with men too? Like this guy has AIDS.
But the more we have, the more you like us. That's what's great.
I think China may be experimenting with that already. Talk about a social credit score.
It sounds way too Orwellian, and people would throw a fit over it.
Lindsay, come on. I mean, wouldn't you rather? Let's be real here.
Sure,
Don't you think the government to kind of tell you just to settle down with it? Just a nice guy. They said, hey, look, he may not be perfect, but you'll have a decent life, and it'll be equivalent to some guy that to your hotness. He'll be successful, equal to your hotness. Like I think that's fair.
This guy's.
You're in
Thank you.
You're in the Bay Area, aren't you?
Oh, she's in the Bay. Hey, okay, let me.
Imperius, calm down.
Oh no,
man, yeah, come on, dude.
I just know. I think she's in California.
She's in NorCal, so it's like.
Yeah, it sounds NorCal. So
yep. On the Central Coast of California.
I'm sorry.
I don't want to give any specifics.
He's by Carmen.
It's just just the things the way you talk about things sounds very Bay Area to me. Maybe you're not. I don't know. Maybe
like it's okay to be gay.
Huh?
She's like Carmel or
no. It's the we haven't mentioned poop on the streets yet, so maybe not.
You're already trying to label me with extremely.
And Central Cali doesn't have really poop on the streets. It's kind of like where the old people live, and like the
San Francisco does, man.
You're trying to understand me by labeling me, and San Francisco.
No. I'm just
very liberal.
I'm just listening to things. I just draw conclusions based on.
Let me ask you a question, Lindsay. What size pant do you wear? That'll be a good label.
What?
Huh?
Well, if she's fat, we'll know. we'll know what she kind of is and how she.
And why do you think she should tell you that?
Well, I mean, I'm just. It's a good knowledge on a woman.
He can ask, but she doesn't.
It doesn't mean she'll
Okay,
answer.
what is your BMI? Would that be a better question, Grid?
Jesus,
This is kind of strange. No, if anything, I'd be
that's
a
very
little bit
weird.
underweight. So, I mean, can we?
Imperious is weird. You don't have to.
No, if a girl's fat, you know a lot about her. Like, you know that she doesn't take care of herself, so she's probably a liberal. Because liberals eat whatever they want. Like liberal, I don't see conservative women
Wow, you're
chowing.
making a lot of generalizations here.
I don't know any conservative women chowing down on Burger King. Then
you don't know some of the women that I know then.
Oh man,
I'm about 105 pounds, and I would still chow down at Burger King.
oh my God, dude, fast food makes girls fart, dude. No way. You guys ever see Jay and Silent Bob? Come on, this is a known fact.
Only thing I think that is substantial that would tell you if she's a liberal is if she has her hair dyed and she drives a Subaru.
Yeah. Imperious, dial it back a little bit, man.
I'm sorry, I'm not good.
Yeah. So I'm not getting actually any real debate prep done, but I hope I gave you some a further look into my worldview, Lindsay, because that seemed, the questions were mostly seemed to be around my worldview, which is fine. I give it all the time. So
did you see Silver's his comment?
What would be your general?
He's looking for a
general contention with on this debate?
I think we like
couldn't
some
hear that.
contention, but it's also annoying to you. We don't really know each other. We're just getting to know each other and see our differences and stuff. But I would hope that we could avoid the labels and just discuss things like two human beings. Ideally, I would like that. I'm a Republican, by the way. I'm not one of those
Well, I label myself dead sexy, but that's just me.
super.
Notice he let off with dead though. So
yeah, I'm scared.
It's dead inside.
I was going to say, Grid, what's your general contention for this debate?
I'm working on that. See that my base contention is going to be is government involvement and endorsement and interference, because every step of the way there's supposed to be checks and balances by the government to stop all of the things that happened, and in each case, the government, which we have placed in control of this industry, the FDA, the industry, every step of the way they fell apart. Absolutely, the testing was wrong. It was rigged or whatever, however you want to look at it. The pharmaceutical companies were able to label OxyContin as non-addictive or less addictive, however you want it, depending on which version of the report you read. And so, and that's wrong. And then the government knew it was wrong. And so why are we allowing the government to have this authority, this power, when obviously they can't do it. They failed miserably at it. So, and then we got to come back to, but then they went and punished the doctors, which the doctors most of the doctors seem to have been acting in good faith. I'm sure there's always pill pushers out there. Let's just be honest, that will prescribe you anything you want, because they get a kickback or whatever from the drug companies I don't know. But most of the doctors seem to have been acting in good faith that it was a less addictive form of opioid-like drug that achieved the same results with less likelihood of addiction or dependence. They're not going to like the word addiction. They're going to say dependence. That's fine. And I think that going after the consulting firm, which was basically just told them how to advertise, is low key admitting that the government fucked up all the way around. Right. And the fact that they went lenient, right, is, Lindsay dropped off. Her phone must have died, or something. But I think that's kind of where I'm going to have to go with it. Because I can't, there's nothing that, all right, we can say McKinsey and the doctors and the pharmacist all acted wrongly and enrich their wallet and all of that. But
I mean, I
isn't
think
that like capitalism's all about? I mean, isn't that how that's how it's supposed to work?
I think you just got more controls in there. I mean, there it is. You can have, like, we look at things like so stupidly, like
I
we
think
look
there are too many controls, and all of the controls allowed this to happen because
the controls we have are not the controls we need. That's the thing. They're all focusing on the wrong problems. Like you can fuel
I'll listen to
innovation.
that argument. What do you got? Help me out.
Well, you can fuel innovation without protecting bad actors. The problem is you have these things like, look at what they were trying to do with the jab, not release the records for 75 years, you got to eliminate those kind of incentives, those kind of, you know what I mean? You got to make, I think you should make these human trials or whatever studies and publicly accessible, like when they're being released. I think you can I think you can implement certain things like that would put more eyes on it, because I just don't think people even realize that pharmaceuticals have these kind of immunities, and that they're not required to follow certain
And a big
restrictions.
reason that is because there's a revolving door between pharmaceuticals and the FDA, and that's something that has to stop for sure.
It's the same thing with the military, industrial, and politics.
It is
That's why
very
there's
strange that all of the people who serve on the evaluation board are the same people who just a couple of years ago were prescribing those drugs and dealing with it, or work for those companies.
There's no different than all these, Raytheon and all these that have their board members are all ex-military guys that have security clearances still, that run things still, because again, they just go from one sector to the other and then enrich themselves. So that's what I'm saying. Like, there are certain things you could look at the most obvious. It's just like crime in general, Grid. If you look at criminality, it's like the same 20% of criminals that commit like 80% of the crimes. They're like these massive reoffenders. And that's the problem. Like, it's not even like crime or criminals in general. It's that a segment of criminals reoffend like 80%. So they continuously do the same crimes. Like, it's really easy for politicians to eliminate a lot of crime because they know who are doing. Notice all these guys, the guy that set the people on fire in Subway and all that. These are all people known to all these. They've been arrested multiple times. These are all people known. They know the problem, but there's no incentive to do anything about it. That's
I think that you would say that. I think it's easy for me to say and probably to prove that when it comes to approving these drugs for sale, it's just too easy to do whatever you want, and there is no accountability. We haven't heard of one person at the FDA that's getting fired over this for approving this drug.
But that's a government thing. I don't think that's a private company. That's a government.
That's what I'm saying. But here, basically, the way this reads is the government had a lenient deal with this McKinsey guy. So obviously, or the company. So McKinsey obviously is not being held as accountable as at least this person thinks they should be. I don't know how accountable the company should be held, but obviously, the deal is felt to be lenient. So in that case, we've also punished the doctors, we've punished the pharmacists, but nobody's talked about punishing the people who approved the drug for use in the first place. Because, as you pointed out, they're government employees. So the government's involvement, endorsement, and well,
Grid, the big secret behind the whole thing is why no one at the top or no one going to get to a certain level is because the whole COV thing was a joint development between the governments of China and the United States. The entire thing was a joint venture between the United States government and the Chinese government. You had United States government. No, the freaking the
We're
coof.
talking
Oh yeah,
about the
yeah. Well,
fact
I
that
don't. We're not going to get into that. I don't care
but
about that.
here's the
Well,
thing that
what I'm
here's the
talking about,
thing.
it's these same things. You have
I
intergovernmental.
understand.
No. That's a point that's not really relevant to this. What the
No,
issue
it is.
is?
You have,
No,
dude,
not in this case.
it
No,
is. I'll explain why.
the issue comes down to the fact that people in government, who are beholden to lobbyists, people in government who are supposed to not just review things but also have a job to determine that these things are safe for people, are compromised, and it is a government problem. It is a government problem because the people who are, it's the same thing with Monsanto, with people who work for Monsanto and then were in the FDA and the USDA and all that stuff. I mean, it's the same.
Yeah,
It's
but
the same issue.
No, you're right. You're right.
it's because there's an intergovernmental between multiple states. Look at why were we in Afghanistan primarily? Because we had to protect the opioid fields. Okay? Like the opioid fields were the big thing that we were there for. And we left when those opioid fields were mostly depleted, or we had no more, or us, it was really us, Britain, that were really involved in that.
I don't. I mean, I think most of the opioids come from China these days.
No, dude, but that's the point. Like, why do you think that the feds had all that? What do they call them? Rare earth materials, the opioids. That's what we were doing. That's what we were in Afghanistan.
I can believe that I can believe that that's a line fed to us, but I don't know that. I don't know that that's the case. It could be, but in this case, I'm more interested in the. I'm more interested in this point in the debate prompt right now, and that is I just there's a. Yeah, I mean, and Pierce, I'm not saying what you're saying is wrong.
No, go ahead. It's your show.
Gotta,
no, I'm ahead with you're leading the way, man.
Yeah. I've got to stay on this debate prompt and not go far afield, right? Because you tend to take and just like off into nowhere, and I got to focus on the debate prompt a little bit. But let's see, what do we got here? So I would argue that it's that while there seems to be trying to make a libertarian argument for freedom, personal freedom to do whatever drugs you want, and that sort of thing. I think the real argument here, the real discussion to be had, is in the government's involvement, the endorsement, and the corruption. And no one was held accountable in the government for it. And I don't know what the solution is. I don't know whether, we should, and I don't think I need to offer a solution, but I'll probably try and work it into my opening statement. I think that what the leftists are going to say, that, these evil corporations need to be fined heavier. They can't sell, that they need to be broken up into smaller corporations with less power and less influence. I think the leftists are going to say that most drugs should be legal, and I think there's a couple other things the leftists are going to say. And I think the libertarians are going to go with the freedom principle and some version of basically what I would say, and that is that we all have the freedom to choose whether we want to do drugs or not, and it's not a problem until it becomes a problem. But I don't know that applies to this specific instance, because what we're really talking about here is the government approving something, knowing that it was not what it was claimed to be,
right? And then making a sweetheart deal with them,
making millions upon millions of dollars, and then when public outcry forced them to, then they went after, starting with the doctors, the pharmacist, and the consulting firm, but they still haven't gone after Purdue Pharma itself, as near as I can tell. Now I'll have to look that up and make sure I'm right, but I'm pretty sure they haven't actually gone after Purdue Pharma, and I bet that that's because if we dig deep enough, Purdue Pharma was developing OxyContin with the government right alongside, and that's why it gained approval, right?
And if you can't prove that, you could definitely say it is very feasible that people within Purdue were paid lobbyist money to politicians to ensure that they wouldn't be held
I think it's
reliable.
easy. I think that the mere fact that they were able to market a drug as an opioid replacement that was less or non-habit forming, yet it is one of the most habit forming opioids out there, is in and of itself proof that there had to be collusion somewhere. So Michigan won $776 million in the lawsuit. Not one penny goes to victims. That's a crime. That's a crime. So I think the real issues are government involvement in the government involvement in the drug industry in and of itself is wrong. The endorsement by the government, which all drugs have to be endorsed by the government.
You have advertised,
and the fact that the same government that is either doing sweetheart deals or the liberals who are out there trying to say we need to be more we have to have more accountability with these corporations. How is the government the rightful one to do that when not only are our politicians are susceptible to big pharma money, but they're also themselves throughout the history, as what Imperius was saying, have been involved in the drug trade themselves.
Yeah, right. That's accurate. Yeah, and again, that goes to the government involvement, endorsement, and corruption. I think that's where we have to look at. We can't. I think that the left will put it squarely on the corporations. The libertarians are going to kind of be in somewhat alignment with me, but not 100%. And then I think that and of course, my viewpoint is going to be, yeah, okay, what the corporation did was bad, but it was only able to do that because the government agency that nobody can fight against, you can't fight the FDA, is so corrupt, and I think that's where I got to lead off, and I'm probably going to have to do some research between now and the start of the show and find some like I have a friend of mine who there's a back surgery procedure that's not approved here, but is approved in Germany. The guy had to go to Germany to get it. Yeah. So, Provo, hey, good to see you back in the chat. Glad you're listening to the show. Yeah, man, I think the content actually is pretty good. I've been doing better, but the quality, I don't know if the quality is any better. I feel like I put more into it when I first started, but we'll see, man. And thanks. The NPC awards, was really cool to get most. What was it?
Most inspirational. I think you got
most inspirational. Thank you. Most inspirational. That was awesome. So, but guys, I think that's where I'm going to go at with this is the tact I'm going to go at with this prompt. I had to weed through all of the rest of it, right? All of the should it be legal? Should it not be? I don't care about it being legal, not legal. All of that. Those are separate discussions to have, but specifically with the McKinsey case, it's all about the government involvement and in the drug trade. So,
Grid, remember, we're the only civilized country that allows drug advertising on TV.
That's true. That is true. Yeah. Well, China and Russia.
Not the same way, though. It's not like that.
Yeah, it's not drug. It's not drug advertising. It is like procedure advertising. They can advertise.
They'll allow like plastic surgeries and things like that. But pharmaceuticals, like, oh my God, the next heart medication. Oh my God, here's the next cholesterol. Here's the next this and that. Like,
Right.
we're the
Yeah.
country that allows that. And I think that's a big problem, because if you realize, like, look at all these shows, and every other commercial is like a pharmacy, like Ifithidor. Like, learn your, this with this, and then, side effects are death, growing a third eye, whatever. And it's just, it's so odd to me that nobody notices that. I don't know.
I think that there are people that notice, like I noticed. Well, first of all, I think the whole medical industry in this country is fucked beyond recognition. The fact that we have doctors, so everybody think that doctors make a lot of money, and I've actually I've looked into buying a few medical offices, and but dude, those guys, they don't make money.
They don't make as people think they do.
There's a good question that Joe Mobley asked, and I was gonna ask you this a few minutes ago.
Joe Mobley, I didn't see him in here.
But he asked you if there was a debate you were prepping, and that you are. But what time is this debate? When is this debate that you're having?
So it's 8:00 tonight.
Okay.
It's a weekly debate. It's on the Reverie. It's an invite only. I'm not the guy that invites people. I know that everybody wants to get in on the pounding of the leftist, but unfortunately, it's invite only.
Yeah.
I will be restreaming it at 8:00 tonight.
Cool.
Central time. I think I'll actually start at 7, and there's like a pre-show warm-up debate. I think the actual debate should start around 8:00. I'll be restreaming it on this channel. It's going to be lit. And
the only one the pounding is Are We Not Men, if you know what I mean.
You guys just need to go ahead and meet up and get a room or whatever it is you need to do to work it out.
I like Are We Not Men. I find them very entertaining.
Yeah, but at any rate, the problem is So, like a lot of industries, doctors make a lot of money. They just can't keep any of it.
Well, it's their insurance that they spend so much. It's
insurance.
It's just, I can only imagine what they do.
If you've ever looked over their financials between insurance, let's see, it's insurance. It is licensing, the equipment and the equipment certifications. And every time it's a massive list of overhead that doctors have, and most of it is irrelevant. And most of it is like, who cares? Oh, you're going to be on Sarah's channel, okay? I think Sarah. What is Sarah debating tonight? It's a gun control, or do guns make you safer or something with the Furby? So that'll be a waste of time. It might be funny though.
He's still around.
Yeah, we kind of had I was on a panel the other day with the Furby, and they were talking about business. And the Furby's first of all, the Furby's a Marxist, but it doesn't actually ever explain Marxism. It asks you questions if you know about Marxism, but it doesn't really talk about how Marxism.
Yeah, Furby's got it in for me, because every time I'm on like speakeasies, or if I'm whatever, or if I'm in the chat, it's like, Marxman. It's like, okay.
Well, so the Furby is the Furby is a bully until it gets bullied, and then it's a whiny little bitch.
Right.
So
exactly.
and it so like I just told it to shut its furry butthole the other day like 10 times in a row. It's very funny. I haven't ever been able to say that before, so that was pleasing. It's pleasing.
Well, do you think Raging Patriot told that to Mr. Boulay the other day, or
what?
To close his hairy butthole.
Oh no, Boulay's cool, man. Boulay's only a couple hours.
Well, they're all mods. I always suspect the mods. They all get together in a big, room, and they all get sweaty stuff. Those mods, dude. I'm telling you.
Misfit Patriot is going to prove himself to be a fascist if he stands by the belief speech he doesn't like should be suppressed with force. That is a bad position to take. That is a horrible position to take. Wow. I don't even know how you could. I'm interested to hear the argument for that. So that's actually an interesting question. I don't believe that any speech should be suppressed ever. I do not believe in the fighting words or offensive speech.
Yeah, I'm pretty much an absolutist, but I get, what about like child, that stuff?
So my problem is that it is my problem would not be with the fact that it's speech. It's that it appeals to a prurient interest, and there's no social value to it. And I don't care whether it's speech or not. I don't think that it's speech in and of itself, right? I think it has a high prurient. What's the word I'm looking for here? Interest or appeal, and as much, and that's fine for adult stuff. Like, I really don't care if you want to look at leather whipping chains.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
I don't care anything about that.
I mean, the stuff. I mean, I get you. Yeah. But we're talking really outside the wall stuff here. Not, the mods are weird enough, but this is.
Yeah, I think that, but it's the problem that I have with with tying it to speech is it's just a wrong argument to make. I've always thought that it was a wrong argument to make, right? It's not that I don't know that it's protected speech, even though in theory it's a picture and therefore art, which is a way of communication and speech. I've never bought into that. I've never bought into that because it's not intended as art or speech. It is intended to serve a prurient interest to elicit a specific a response to something that I believe that everyone's Imperious is upset that I timed him out for posting TOS stuff, and he is frustrated. He could be a paralegal. Paralegals are paralegals.
He's dude. Mr. Boulay makes me laugh.
They're people too.
We're people too.
But yeah, I don't know, man. I just don't.
When they say imp, they're talking about you, right, Imperious? Like that's
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Simp or imp, either way. Usually it's Imperious, but that's okay. But so that's an interesting aberration. Imperious. So again, I think that's an aberration. But like fighting words, what about fighting words to me may not be fighting words to you.
No, yeah, I get. What about like classification for like national security and restrictions on speech for that kind of stuff? Like,
no, I don't. I mean, unless we're actually in wartime.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Like actual classification material. I mean, like for example, there are. I mean, you wouldn't be able to speak. Classify material that could lead to.
So here's the thing. I think that so much has been hidden because of the idea that it should be classified or something like that I'm against the whole thing. I believe that unless it directly, and I mean directly, endangers Americans in the field conducting war, then it should be public knowledge.
I mean, I'm just guessing like preventative lives being lost. Like if you know that certain installations, certain things are at certain places and could be hit by things, you know what I mean? And you talk about
but that's not really. But okay, so like your scheduling of your installation is irrelevant. That's not the public has no.
I'm just talking about theoretically, like if you're negligent.
What I'm saying is like the fact that there are 300 troops at X installation back in whenever. That's if you're not actively involved in war, it can't hurt you. All right, so if
I'm talking about like active security codes or something, or active, what I mean?
It's a decaying standard, right? Like it's a decaying standard. So if you are, like today, right now, while I'm doing this podcast, I would not reveal my exact location. Now,
Okay.
next year or next month, if I'm not doing it from here anymore, then you knowing this location is irrelevant. Right?
Well, I'm talking about someone like Chelsea Manning, I think. Remember that, where the person that went in there and actually stole classified and released it into the
or Snowden or any of that. But the thing is that was all stuff that did not endanger Americans in the field. Right. So
but still, I mean,
historical stuff. Right?
I think
I don't understand why we're hiding any of the information for I don't understand what value to national security is for any of the JFK stuff to be hidden. Right.
No, I get that. That's not what the Churn stole. The Churn stole like future.
It should be a decaying interest, right? So if it's going to endanger troops in the field today or next
in the future, next week,
next week or next month, what does it matter?
Well, I don't know. I just think, look, I'm not a free speech absolutist, but I think there should, look, in the matter of discourse or the matter of like feelings
I'm not an absolutist. I just think that we've gone too far with.
And I do too. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I believe there should be some barrier and like, I don't think like you should be going around and say, hey, look, here's this person's address. I want one of my followers to go kill that person and bring him my head tomorrow. Like, that's probably a good thing if you're like, hey,
yeah, but that's not something that would be covered under free speech.
Well, of course, but that's why we're saying there are certain limits. I think we all can agree on. Like, if you're Taylor Swift went and said that, someone will do it.
Mm-hmm.
They're nut jobs, these people.
Right. Well, like I believe, so like that chick holding up the Trump head, right? I can't get Kathy Gifford or whatever it was.
Even that was fine to me because that's like a mocking parody.
Yeah,
I get
that's fine. I believe that is protected. But like, how much oil is really in the ground in the U.S. should not be a national secret.
No, I don't think. But I think
that should not be something that you need a security clearance to get.
I think the locations of our like SSBNs are
sure.
You got, that's all I'm saying.
Again, I'm oversimplifying because I'm not going to spend 4 hours on the subject, but I think that if it doesn't endanger troops in the field, our actual national security, or immediate future operations, I guess, it should not be common knowledge that, whatever aircraft carrier is going to be in this place on this day at this time, because, bad actors could do things.
That's what I think we agree on. Yeah, I think we agree. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, and it should be some peripheral, but I don't think on common exchange in the public place of ideas there should really be any kind of banning or any kind of.
But again, privately though, right? Like, if I want to keep all of my information hidden, I should be able to do that because it's my private information.
Oh, yeah. I think there should be a lot.
I'm talking specifically about government information, right? Like,
like social security number, stuff like that.
Yeah. I don't think that. I find that far too much is hidden away under the idea of national security.
Oh, I agree. Look, I'm not pro.
I don't know how to fix it. I'm not saying that I have the answer by any means.
No, I'm not part and parcel with the whole like secure everything, because look at what the FISA court does.
Yeah, I like that idea. I think the way the FISA court works is good. I think that it can be streamlined. Right.
Yeah. I think what should happen is those judges that find out that one of those agents lied should be able to impose direct penalties onto those agents.
Well, I'm going to use an example. Like I don't believe that it served any national or local interest beyond protecting certain people. The Nashville
the Troon
shooter, her manifesto, and all of that information should have been released instantly. Like that should never have been classified or held back.
Oh,
And once
fighting,
the
Grid.
court told them
Fighting.
to release it, even once the court told them to release it, they still didn't release it. And that's wrong. We can't do that. That's wrong. You can't. There's nothing that you're going to be able to. There's nothing that anyone could say that can convince me otherwise. Like, shooter's dead. We know who the parents are. We know who the victims are. There's no there's no legitimate purpose served by hiding or redacting that information. None.
Other than they don't want people to know that hormones and people cutting their things off makes people crazy.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, the correlation. They don't want the correlation data to come out, right? They don't.
Well, you're seeing it more and more.
Manipulation.
Yeah, more and more.
Yeah. Yeah. That's yeah, like I said, I mean, and again, this is just my viewpoint. I mean, I'm often wrong about many things.
We're all wrong about a lot of things.
Yeah.
As you get older, you realize you're wrong about all kinds of shit all the time.
Yeah. I'm not saying I'm 100% right, but it's
well, Grid. I mean, it's the whole. Have you seen some of these congressional hearings lately in the Senate?
I love watching congressional hearings. Like, I tell everybody, if you really want to see first of all, you want to see some funny shit. And you want to understand the real issue. Like, you actually want to understand the issue.
And if you want to know why women have no business in politics, you can watch the whole thing between
that's true. Yeah. I was going to say that out loud. I'm glad somebody else said that out loud.
Very few women sit through those things and ask the questions that need to be sitting through those hearings and stuff. Like,
they do really well with this stuff. They do really well with this. Senator, I cannot seem to recall that information. Could you ask that at a later date? We'll get that information for you.
I'll be happy to get that to you in your office, Senator.
Yeah. That's and I'll bring you your coffee as well, if that's okay.
No, and those are because you really see how these agencies work and how they just manipulate everything, and like how the data is manipulated. Everything they do is and nothing they submit is like truthful at all.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Did you watch the what the hell is I just had his name, and I'm not Gork. Mayorkas. Thank you. Watching that guy in the hearing,
Senator, we have achieved great progress in the immigration goals of America, and I believe that, and I stand by my I stand by our hard work and the hard work of the Border Patrol agents of this country. Did
you? And I meant to get into the meat of the Trudeau resignation. We'll do that later. But did you guys watch Mayorkas for Ted Cruz versus Mayorkas, where Mayorkas could not answer a single question?
Well, that's all he said was, "I'm proud of the work we've done over the last 4 years and the immigration policies that we've implemented." That's all he said.
Yeah. Or he said, "I don't have that information. I can't comment."
Believe that we've done the best in America. I believe that we're helping America. I believe our immigrant population helps America. That's what he says.
So he had 3 comments. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay. Marjorie does speak her mind. I actually like MTG. I would like her a little bit if she could tone it down a little bit.
She does a chill voice, kind of, though, when she yells and gets mad. It does kind of get to that, like,
yeah. She just needs to, basically, she needs to, instead of going to level 10, she needs to go to 7.5. If she just goes to 7.5, it's the right amount of indignation, the right amount of anger in the face. It's perfect.
I like the Luna one. She's really good. Look at that little Mexican one. You seen that one, good?
Yeah, you like the you like dark.
I really want that one, that really hot one down in Texas. I think she is. She's trying to run for mayor or state senator.
I don't pay attention to.
No, she was the one running in the tactical vest and the bulletproof vest and stuff in her adverts. Oh my God, Grid. Oh.
I do remember seeing that. Mosman, where are you at on national security? I'm going to give you a couple of minutes here.
Well, I think a lot of national security stuff, there's a lot of things that are hidden behind it. I think a lot of the FISA courts, they do hide a lot of stuff. They will classify things so that they don't have to have discovery. So there's, to me, it goes back to the whole thing, which is we don't have enough independent review or overview. And I understand that the issue is national security. And I have no problem with somebody getting national security clearance and saying, okay, we have to have a review on this. But, it's just one of those things where, yeah, I do agree. If there's assets in the field and there's a current mission going on, right? Like, well, I'm trying to remember how many years ago it was when they talked about what they were going to do, and then even kind of like what Biden did a couple of years ago with the way he approached talking about the withdrawal from Afghanistan, like all of that kind of stuff. You can see why it's important that, when we have assets in the field, we have American interests. We need to protect those. But I also think that a lot of times after the fact, there's a lot of things that are put into there. And it kind of reminds me of that other guy that really used to annoy the hell out of me, which was FBI Director Wray. I can't disclose this because this is an ongoing. Well, but here's the problem, okay, you could say it's an ongoing thing, but it's been how many years since J6? How many years has it been since this kind of situation? And we have information coming out showing that we did have FBI agents there. I mean, and that to me is not so much about protecting an investigation. It's about protecting his ass,
Right.
But I think, like, to me, Snowden is a hero. He'll always go down as a hero. Chelsea is a little different of a situation. And then the guy that disclosed things on Discord, that I think that was probably an inappropriate thing, because there was information in there that was relevant to operations going on. But
That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because operations
Yeah.
take. Operations don't just happen. They take like intrinsic planning that happen in like multiple steps over multiple months and stuff. It doesn't just, you know what I mean?
But
Yeah,
I do think how we do the declassification or classification process is important, because like, there are people who were once in the government who maybe have gotten out of the government. Maybe they were like in the CIA and now they work private security, or they do their own private contracting, and they've been like 6 or 7 years outside of the government and they still have high security clearance. I think that's BS.
That's like Joe Mobley. We got to watch out for that guy. He's got like this. He's sneaking around with his security clearance, listening on everyone.
That's okay. We all know he's a Fed, so it's okay.
I'm just putting it up, just making, reiterating that. Just make sure you.
I'm gonna see this, and then we're gonna do our final comments. But it's interesting to me that no matter what we do, we all agree that there has to be more candidness and more availability of information, especially during these congressional hearings. And there has to be accountability. And yet, all you need to do is watch congressional hearings and listen to how much of the hearing is literally someone saying, I cannot recall that fact. I'll have to check my figures. And even when they're called on it, ma'am, you were told 3 times to bring that information to court today. Why do you not have this information? Couldn't get it. Didn't have time. I need more time to get this material together. I want to be prepared, whatever. It's literally, if you watch congressional hearings, you will understand why people hate politicians. You just will.
Some of the ones
you also understand why we need change and accountability in Congress.
Well, and some of these congressional hearings, I think, just end up being, sorry for the offensive language, just circle jerks, because Congress is handcuffed to what they can do. So they have the power of the purse, but that's about it. So nothing gets done by just bringing these people before. I mean, you can take out some of their budget, but this is why it's so important to be able to have someone like Trump in the executive branch that can actually have the ability to start like actually taking out these agencies, you know.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's again, I just believe that we are in a very strange situation and we can't do anything about it. Go ahead and, John, go ahead and wrap up. Give us your final comments and then, or actually, I'm curious. Why don't you go and then we'll get to John since he just.
Well, great. It was a good show. I enjoyed terrorizing the mods as always. They deserve it. They cause a
They
lot
don't
of
deserve it. They're good people.
They
They're
cause
good
a
people.
lot of grief down in the chat. They do. They're abusive. Mr. Boulay the other day, he called me the N word. He said, N words don't get to talk in the chat. So,
He did?
Oh, he did. He did. These are vicious people. Vicious people.
Mr. Boulay is a nice guy.
He's a vicious man. I think
He
Raging
must have
Patriot.
insulted gold, sir.
I think he's just the thing. They're rubbing off on him. I think.
No, I don't think so.
No. But Grid, I think the answer again. Look, I think the problem is that things have swung so much that kind of like we're tired of like not compensating. Why not going back our way? So we're a little bit more extreme where we're like, look, we want it absolute this way. But I think you can have certain nuance in like implementation in civics, especially. And I think that's kind of the way to go, is not to just destroy it all, but to tweak it, and you guys got to keep tweaking and then use societal factors to implement certain values, certain, activities and behaviors. And it takes time though. Remember, it took a long time for the liberals to get to where they are too. We got to just be able to take the time. And that kind of long-term vision that you have to implement to do it. I think a lot of us are just like tired of the constant nagging, the constant reiteration of the liberal bullshit that we're like, look, let's swing it the completely other way. And yeah, I mean, it's theoretically, it's possible to say everything's free speech. Let's just say everything and everything. It's just, you can, but it's just not, it's not functional. You got to remember, freedom is not synonymous with good. And I think what we got to remember, we're trying to be good too. We're not trying to just be controlling or what we would consider successful. We got to be good too. I think that's what we got to focus on. Anyways, good day to the chat. I'll see Lindsay tonight. I expect her over at 4:00 for dinner. Grid, I'll see you in a day or two. Talk to you soon, bud.
Sure, man.
I'll buy for the debate tonight. Good luck for that. I'll probably listen.
Appreciate you watching the debate. We'll need the numbers.
Yep.
All right, Mr. Mosman, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. First and foremost, I don't know what he's saying about the mods, because you have some of the best mods.
You have the best
only been the most polite, and so obviously he's done something, whether by spurging or by just being himself. They know sometimes you just need to cool it down a bit and not be so weird. But for me, I would just say good luck to you on your upcoming debate. I'll try to watch it tonight, and maybe if I get some time, I got to go do some tests. I'm sick and tired of medical tests, but I will maybe try to if I can get the time and I get my computer getting up, I can maybe send you some stuff if I see something.
Yeah, man, that'd be cool.
But for me, again, Imperius can say, we just need to tweak certain things. I think part of the problem is until we fix the culture, maybe you cannot fix the government. And I think part of the idea of government fixing the culture is part of the problem, and that's something that we have to readdress. And obviously, greed and people's self-interest always are being huge, but and I also would agree with you that there are ways we can deal with issues outside of using the law or using a federal authority as a bully whip to enact things. And I would say that we're never going to get the culture anyways. I think this idea that somehow we can get the culture, we can get the government back, I think it's foolhardy. I think the best thing we can do is do right by our families and our communities and bolster those up, and still advocate for what's right and speak truth. without having to be a bunch of fascist dictators.
Well said, John. Really appreciate you coming on the show today. I appreciate everyone that came on today. I really appreciate all of the guests, even Simperius. He did get a little bit out of control today, but that's okay. You know, things happen. It's fine. It's fine. It's going to be a great debate tonight. I think I'm going to write a couple of different opening statements. Hopefully I'm towards the end. That way I can tailor my opening statements to the arguments of the other debaters. There are going to be, in theory, there are 2 of us conservatives, 2 libertarians, and 2 leftists, plus the host who is also leftist. So we'll see how that all works out for me. Lately, the conservatives have been just basically kicking their butts, and that is the trend we want to continue. I'm gonna be getting some work together. I want to say that I really appreciate Ghost 1978 and some of you other guys who send me information and documentation over on Discord. Even if I don't actually use it in the debate, I promise you that I value each and every piece of information because it's awesome and it gives me a leg up. And with that, gentlemen, I bid you a great day. Remember to be cool, wear glasses if you need them, and get off my lawn.
All right, time to get off the lawn.
I am everywhere. I am inside each and every single one of you. You just look in, and I will be there. Waving out at you, naked, wearing only